Chapter 25. In the blood fog, the black shadow pounced on Immortal. With just one step, it covered a distance of 5 meters. In an instant it arrived in front of Immortal. Judging from the speed alone, this black shadow was at least 10 times stronger than the mutated zombie he saw 5 years ago. However, in the next moment, Immortal raised his right foot high. Then he slammed it down. Woo! His right leg cut through the air at high speed. The thick blood fog in front of him, under his slash, actually split open a crack that was tens of meters long and 5 meters wide. Puff! This kick landed on the top of the black shadow's head. The black shadow's entire body, like a balloon, burst in an instant. Blood and minced meat scattered in all directions. Then, this kick landed on the ground. The ground suddenly exploded with a bang. A trace of the explosion instantly extended to a distance of 50 meters away. 50 meters away, more than 10 zombies surrounded. But under the power of this explosion, their bodies suddenly flew out to both sides. The power of this kick was so strong. Immortal was also a little surprised in his heart. After evolving into a hunter, he had never tested his strength. Just now he only used 10% of his strength. It had such a shocking effect. At this moment, his pupils had turned blood red. Blood demon eyes opened. Suddenly, the thick blood fog around him seemed to not exist in his eyes. His gaze passed through the thick blood fog and looked around. He saw that there were thousands of zombies surrounding him. These zombies were all wet from head to toe, leaving wet footprints with every step they took. As for the floating zombie corpses above the dam, they had long since disappeared. Obviously, they should be the zombies that were thrown into the dam before. Immortal frowned slightly. These zombies were clearly dead, and even half of their heads had been cut off. How did they come back to life? These thousands of zombies, smelling the scent of a living person, surrounded Immortal one after another. Roar! Hiss! Hiss! From the throats of the zombies, there were all kinds of strange sounds. They quickly ran toward Immortal, stirring up the blood fog for a while. Immortal did not move. Telekinesis instantly spread out, covering a radius of 500 meters. In the next moment, not far from his feet, a fist-sized rock suddenly trembled slightly. Then he flew up into the air. Then, another rock the size of a human head trembled twice and suddenly flew into the air. Then the third, the fourth, the fifth around Immortal. All the rocks weighing less than 50 kilograms were lifted off the ground. Then it quickly flew around him. His speed was extremely fast. These rocks circled around him, forming a spinning belt of rocks within a radius of 100 meters. At this point, the first zombie had already entered the area where the stones were flying. Bang! A fist-sized rock instantly pierced through the zombie's chest while flying at high speed. Bang! Another rock the size of a human head smashed into the zombie's shoulder. Its shoulder was instantly mangled. One of his arms flew far away. The next moment, bang 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 bang. In the blink of an eye, the zombie was blasted into pieces by rocks of all sizes. Then the second zombie also entered the spinning stone area. Bang bang bang. In an instant he was also turned into meat paste. In front of the high-speed spinning stones, their bodies were as fragile as paper. Zombies had no emotions, so naturally, they had no fear. One by one they rushed into the spinning stone area. Bang 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 bang. Suddenly, broken limbs and body parts flew together. The flesh and blood were the same color as the stones. This spinning stone area was like a huge meat grinder with a radius of 100 meters. All the zombies that rushed in were almost instantly minced into pieces, scattered on the ground. The ground was also dyed red with blood in just half a minute. Soon, almost all the stones turned blood red. It seemed that Immortal was flying around like a bloody torrent. In just a few seconds, thousands of zombies were torn apart by this bloody torrent. This was the move that Immortal figured out after seeing Sister Ponytail's flying knives. Sister Ponytail could only control 24 flying knives at most now, but Immortal could control thousands of stones. And this move saved more telekinesis than purely using telekinesis to detonate the zombie's head. More than 300 meters away, a mutated zombie saw this scene, and his eyes were full of horror. When did humans become so powerful? In horror, he quickly turned around and wanted to escape. However, it was too late. Emosher moved 100 meters in 1 step. In 3 steps, he came in front of the mutated zombie. Then he moved his telekinesis. Crash. Thousands of blood-red stones flew up 50 meters in the air. Then they fell from the sky. Like a bloody torrent, they smashed into the mutated zombie. The mutated zombie didn't even have time to react before it was smashed into meat paste. And the stones quickly piled up into a pile of blood-red stones about 5 meters high on its meat paste. It was like a huge blood-red tomb. After doing this, Emosher glanced around with the blood demon's eye. There was no danger for the time being. The alarm of the virtual sentry tower had also disappeared at this time. Emosher returned to the humans. Looking at these humans who had fallen into a coma, he was in a dilemma. How to take these humans out? There was no car, and his system backpack couldn't put living things. At this time, the sound of the virtual sentry tower suddenly sounded again. Beep, beep, beep. Beep, beep, beep. At first, the frequency of the sound was relatively low, but soon it became more and more urgent. Emosher's heart skipped a beat. He looked around with the blood demon's eye. With one look, he couldn't help but be stunned. He saw in the blood fog, a 5-meter-long big guy was crawling towards him quickly. This thing was covered in scales. It had thick limbs. Its mouth could be grinned to the back of its head. This turned out to be a 5-meter-long crocodile. A mutated giant crocodile. This mutated giant crocodile was extremely fast. It was even faster than a human sprinter. Seeing this, Emosher looked at his right arm. The next moment, his right arm quickly thickened. Pieces of black scales the size of fingernails appeared. His entire right hand turned into a dragon claw. At this moment, the mutated giant crocodile was less than 10 meters away from Emosher. Its pair of small eyes flashed with a bloodthirsty light. It opened its huge mouth and pounced towards Emosher. Emosher leaped. He was already above the mutated giant crocodile's head. The Titan dragon claw swung down. Whoosh, a black light flashed. The mutated giant crocodile's body was directly cut into 2 at the waist. In fact, Emosher's Titan dragon claw was only as long as his arm. Logically speaking, it was impossible to cut open the mutated giant crocodile's body that was more than 2 meters tall. However, when Emosher swung out the Titan dragon claw, the tip of the dragon claw erupted with an invisible force. This force was even sharper than a sword. In an instant, the mutated giant crocodile that was more than 2 meters tall was cut into 2. And on the ground under the mutated giant crocodile's body, there were 5 huge claw marks that were more than 20 meters long, 2 meters wide, and half a meter deep. The power of this claw was even more terrifying than this. However, at this moment, accompanied by the sound of splashing water, another mutated giant crocodile crawled out of the dam. Then the third, the fourth, the fifth. In just half a minute, more than 100 mutated giant crocodiles crawled out of the water. Emosher was also in the mood to kill at this time. With a thought, his left arm also turned into a Titan dragon claw. He directly jumped into the group of mutated giant crocodiles. Whoosh, a claw slashed. An invisible force shot out from the tip of the claw. 3 mutated giant crocodiles that were 5 meters long were instantly cut into 6 pieces. Whoosh! Emosher was in a bowling posture, his right claw almost touching the ground as he slashed forward. That invisible force instantly shot forward more than 100 meters. Within this 100 meters, all the mutated giant crocodiles were cut into several pieces. Emosher was very happy. Wasn't this like what was written in novels such as Saber Energy, Sword Energy, and Athlete's Foot? He used to only think that the Titan dragon claw was very sharp. He didn't expect that when he used his full strength, the invisible force in it was 100 times sharper than any saber or sword. The destructive power was also far beyond imagination. In excitement, he waved his claws continuously. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Every time he waved his claw, at least a few to more than 10 mutated giant crocodiles would be cut into 2. Not long after, the mutated giant crocodile corpses were lying on the side of the dam in a mess. Emosher looked at his dragon claws, and then looked at the mutated giant crocodile corpses on the ground. The Titan dragon claw was simply ridiculously strong. These mutated giant crocodiles had palm-sized hard scales on their bodies. Even bullets couldn't penetrate them. It was estimated that even a rocket might not be able to cause damage to them. The Titan Dragon Claw could easily kill the mutated giant crocodiles with just the invisible force. Just as Emosher was sighing in his heart. In his mind, the voice of the virtual sentry tower suddenly sounded quickly. DDDDD. Chapter 26. After Emosher killed hundreds of mutated giant crocodiles, the voice of the virtual sentry tower suddenly sounded in his mind. DDDDD. Emosher immediately raised his head and scanned the surroundings with his blood demon eyes. The next moment he looked above the dam. He saw that the blood-red water in the dam was constantly churning. The water was getting bigger and bigger. It gradually turned into a blood wave. At first, the blood wave was only a meter high. Gradually, it became higher and higher. It reached more than 10 meters. Whoosh! In the rolling blood wave, a huge figure emerged from the water. Roar! The huge mouth opened, and a shocking roar was heard. The water seemed to be trembling under the roar. Emosher looked at the figure carefully. It was more than 20 meters long. Its back was covered with black scales. Each scale was more than 30 centimeters in diameter. On its back, there was a spine that looked like a sword dragon. Its head was like a crocodile, but there were more than 10 thick barbs. It looked more ferocious than an ordinary giant crocodile. In the huge mouth, each of the sharp teeth was more than half a meter long. This was a mutated crocodile king. The mutated crocodile king glanced at the mutated giant crocodile corpses on the ground. In a pair of blood-red eyes, anger rose. Again it roared to the sky. Roar! Emosher moved his mind. The dragon claws on his arms quickly disappeared. The next moment, the bones in his right hand pierced the skin and quickly grew. It turned into a 3-meter-long black spear. Then he grabbed the sky splitter dragon spear with his right hand, and used a little strength. In an instant he threw it. Whoosh! The dragon spear was like a black lightning. In an instant, it traveled more than 200 meters. Chi! It directly pierced through the head of the mutated giant crocodile king. Then it flew far away. After flying more than 300 meters, it fell into the water with a splash. The roaring giant crocodile king stopped abruptly. The next moment, it fell backward with a bang. Splash! A huge blood wave more than 10 meters high splashed up. A moment later, its corpse sank into the blood water. Instant kill. The mutated crocodile king thought that it could easily swallow this human. It never expected that it wouldn't last as long as the small mutated crocodiles under its command. It emerged from the water and roared twice. Then he was killed instantly. It was probably the most embarrassing mutated beast to have died. Emosher used his bloodthirsty demon eyes to scan his surroundings. There was no longer any danger around. The voice of the virtual sentry tower stopped ringing. He thought for a moment. He took out a bottle of recovery potion. This recovery potion was not meant for him to consume. The battle just now seemed very intense, and it must have consumed a lot of his energy. But in fact, it was completely one-sided. Until now, he hadn't even broken a single sweat. His recovery medicine was for Happy. Once Happy took the recovery medicine, he woke up in less than 3 minutes. When she saw Emosher, her eyes flickered slightly. Emosher knew what she meant. He chuckled. "Don't worry, I'm fine. You're fine too." A sunny smile appeared on Happy's face. She sat up. When she saw the flesh and blood around her and the researchers lying motionless on the ground, she couldn't help but feel nervous again. She subconsciously grabbed Emosher's arm. Emosher smiled at her comfortingly and said, "They just fainted. They should wake up soon." Happy nodded. At this moment, Emosher saw that there was no danger around. With a thought he said, "That's right. System, sign in." He didn't sign in before he came out this morning. He planned to leave the sign-in opportunity in the wilderness. It was his first time signing in outside the base. He didn't know if he could get anything good. The system's voice sounded in his mind. Sign-in successful. Sign-in location, Wilderness Dam. Sign-in reward 1. Mutated Giant Crocodile King Gene Enhancer 1. 2. Zombie Giant Crocodile Blood 1 drop. He looked at the Gene Enhancer in his backpack in his mind. Mutated Giant Crocodile King Gene Enhancer 1. After injection, It can stimulate cells and produce mutated giant crocodile king scales on the body's skin, greatly increasing defense. 2. After injection, the body will emit the mutated giant crocodile king's aura, which is an absolute deterrent to mutated giant crocodiles. Zombie giant crocodile blood. When exposed to the air, it will emit the zombie giant crocodile king's aura. It is an extremely strong deterrent to zombies and mutated giant crocodiles. Emosher nodded. The reward this time was very practical. He looked to the east of the dam, at the residential area in the distance. If he signed in there tomorrow, he didn't know what he would get. Just as Emosher was thinking about this, roar. A shocking roar suddenly came from the residential area. This sound was somewhat similar to the mutated giant crocodile king's roar. Emosher frowned slightly. There were also mutated giant crocodiles there? He pondered for a moment and said, "Something might have happened. You stay here, I'll go and take a look." He wasn't a saint who would take the risk to save the hunter group. It was just that it was the apocalypse, and all humans shared a common destiny. If something happened to the hunter group, the strength of the base would be greatly reduced. Then it wouldn't be so easy for him to continue hiding in the base and signing in comfortably in the future. But Happy grabbed Emosher's arm, and there was a look of concern in her eyes. It was as if she was saying, "Don't go." Emosher smiled at her comfortingly and said, "Don't worry, I'll be fine." Then he took out the small bottle he had just obtained from signing in. There was a drop of dark red blood in the bottle. Zombie giant crocodile king's blood. He stuffed the bottle into Happy's hand. He reminded her, "If you encounter danger, open the bottle cap. Remember?" Seeing that Emosher insisted on going, Happy could only nod. When she first came to the zombie farm, she was only 15 years old. During the 5 years in the city, Emosher had always been like a big brother and took care of her. So she still listened to Emosher's words. Emosher turned his head and took 2 steps. But his footsteps stopped again. When he turned around, he saw that Happy's eyes were following him. He walked back again. He rubbed Happy's head. Immediately, Happy's hair was messed up. In the past few years, the two of them had become very familiar with each other. Occasionally, they would play around like siblings. Every time he would rub Happy's head like this, he would rub her neatly combed hair into a mess. A smile immediately appeared on Happy's face. Emosher exhorted again, "Don't worry. Remember, open the bottle cap when you encounter danger." Happy nodded heavily. She expressed that she remembered. Although she didn't know what was strange in the bottle, she had always believed in Emosher's words. Only then did Emosher feel relieved and strode towards the residential area. A moment later, he disappeared from Happy's sight. More than 5 minutes later, Emosher was already not far away from the residential area. He was not in a hurry to investigate the situation in the residential area. Instead, with a thought, he took out the mutated giant crocodile king gene enhancer. He clenched his left hand into a fist and gently exerted force with his right finger. He injected the enhancer into his body. Chapter 27. Emosher injected the mutant giant crocodile king gene enhancer into his body. He began to feel a burning sensation in his body. This feeling was far from being as strong as the Titan Dragon gene enhancer. However, he could clearly feel that some cells in his body were undergoing rapid genetic mutations. Most of these cells were located on the surface of the body. In the beginning, only a small portion of the cells were undergoing a breakthrough. However, the surface of his body did not change at all. Gradually, more and more cells underwent genetic mutations. It slowly approached a critical point. At a certain moment, this critical point was finally broken. The quantitative change triggered a qualitative change. The surface of his body began to change rapidly. The surface of his skin continued to harden and formed scales the size of a fingernail. Just like the scales on the mutant giant crocodile. These scales were not metallic black like the dragon claw scales. Instead, there was a faint red color in the black. Soon these scales covered his entire body. Even his head was covered by scales. Only a pair of eyes were exposed. Emosher was delighted. Previously, other than the dragon claw, his body's defense was not too strong. But now that the mutant giant crocodile's scales covered his entire body, his body's defense would be greatly enhanced. Then he leaped. In an instant he was 100 meters away. He leaped toward the residential area. Back to 20 minutes ago. On the east side of the dam, in the residential area, the hunter group drove into the residential area and found that there were indeed many zombies in the residential area. There were about 2,000 of them. They were extremely excited. All the hunter group scrambled to pounce on those zombies. After all, there were too many monks and too little porridge. If they were a little slower, there would be no zombies to kill. After they killed the zombies in the courtyard, they searched the residential building. There were also many zombies in the residential building. However, with the strength of their hunter group, it was only a matter of time before they killed these zombies. Most of the 3,000 hunter group entered the residential building. Only the leader, Sister Ponytail, the deputy leader, Yang Kong, and a few psychokinesis stayed in the courtyard. They thought that the cleaning this time would be as smooth as before. But 5 minutes later, a scream suddenly came. Ah! They hurriedly raised their heads to look. They saw the 5th floor of a residential building. A corpse hunter fell from above. Bang! He fell to the ground, raising a cloud of dust. Their hearts trembled as they hurriedly rushed over. A bloody hole the size of an arm appeared where the heart of the corpse hunter was. The heart was nowhere to be seen in the bloody hole. Not good. Yang Kong exclaimed and hurriedly wanted to go over to check. Ah! However, another cry of agony was heard. On the residential building next to them, another hunter crashed through the window and fell down. Following that, screams continued to ring out. The expressions of Sister Ponytail and the others changed. Sister Ponytail quickly spread out her psychic power to check the surroundings. Soon, they found that there were mutated zombies in the surrounding buildings. Moreover, these mutated zombies were much faster than the mutated zombies he had seen before. His strength was even stronger. Even a level 5 zombie hunter was no match for these mutated zombies. At this time, these hunters had become the targets of the mutated zombies. Miss Ponytail knew that something was wrong. He hastily called out, "All hunters, withdraw from the residential building." Soon, the hunters withdrew one after another. But even so, more than 50 hunters had been killed. Sister Ponytail frowned. In less than a minute, more than 50 hunters were lost. Since the establishment of the hunter group, there had never been such a heavy loss. If those mutated zombies came to the yard, she could control the 24 flying knives and behead them. However, those mutated zombies seemed to know the power of psychokinesis and did not come to the yard at all. She could only order, "Everyone withdraw from the community." Everyone never doubted her orders. They immediately withdrew out of the community. However, before they could withdraw from the community, a hunter suddenly shouted, "Leader, what is that?" Everyone heard this and looked towards the entrance of the community. They saw that at the entrance of the community overgrown with weeds, a cloud of mist suddenly spread out. Moreover, this cloud of mist was not an ordinary white, but blood red. The blood mist was spreading at an extremely fast speed towards the hunter group. Obviously, they could not escape even if they wanted to. Sister Ponytail immediately ordered, "Everyone back to back, pay attention to defense." Before she finished speaking, the body hunters at the front were already swallowed by the blood mist. In less than half a minute, the entire hunter group was shrouded in the blood mist. In the blood mist, the visibility was only about 5 meters. Moreover, the psychokinesis found that in the blood mist, the range of their psychokinesis detection was greatly reduced. Even Sister Ponytail, a level 2 psychokinesis, could only detect a range of about 100 meters. Fortunately, as long as the psychokinesis stood within the range of their psychokinesis could be shared. So now, it was equivalent to that every psychokinesis could detect a range of about 300 meters around them. Under such detection, all the psychokinesis faces changed drastically. They saw that the hunter group was densely packed with zombies. These zombies were constantly pouring out from the surrounding residential buildings. All of their paths of retreat had been sealed off. If they wanted to leave, they would have to step over these zombies' bodies. These zombies, if not 70 to 80,000, were at least 30 to 50,000. And among these zombies, there were many mutated zombies. If they all swarmed up, even if the hunter group had more than 3,000 hunters, it would be impossible to stop them. Guo, who was somewhat effeminate, was now the captain of the hunter group. He was one of the first hunters. At this moment, he heard these psychokinesis say that there were tens of thousands of zombies surrounding them. He could not help but think back to 5 years ago. On that night 5 years ago, the 15 of them were the first hunters. They thought that they were invincible and became arrogant. They broke into the encirclement of thousands of zombies and were almost wiped out. If it were not for the timely appearance of the mysterious powerhouse, they would have died many years ago. At that time, they thought that they had learned a profound lesson and would never make the same mistake again. But they were wrong. Humans were forgetful. 5 years later, a hunter group with more than 3,000 people, 13 psychokinesis. They became arrogant again. As a result, they were once again surrounded by enemies. Thinking of this, he could not help but look at Sister Ponytail, the mysterious powerhouse from 5 years ago, the current Captain Ponytail, the powerful level 2 psychokinesis. This time, could Captain Ponytail repeat the miracle from last time? The others nearby also turned their gazes to Sister Ponytail. In this situation, it seemed that only Captain Ponytail could save them. After all, she was once the mysterious powerhouse, the existence that could kill thousands of zombies with one move. Chapter 28. The 3,000 hunters were besieged by tens of thousands of zombies. It seemed that they would not be able to escape. In this moment of crisis, everyone recalled that night 5 years ago. So everyone looked at Miss Ponytail. 5 years ago, it was her appearance that killed thousands of zombies with one move. That saved the entire base. If there was anyone who could save them now, it could only be her. However, what they did not know was that Miss Ponytail was thinking, is the mysterious powerhouse among them? But she also knew that she could not only put her hopes on the mysterious powerhouse. Maybe the mysterious powerhouse did not come out with them at all. Her face was cold, and she said, "All hunters, protect psychokinesis. Don't let any zombies get close to psychokinesis. All psychokinesis except for me. Divide into 12 areas and guard the surroundings with your telekinesis." Psychokinesis was very strong. They could fight against 10 or even dozens of hunters. However, their fleshly bodies were very fragile. They were like ordinary people. As long as they were approached, ordinary people could stab them to death with a fruit knife. Under Miss Ponytail's order, everyone began to make a defensive posture in an orderly manner. At this moment, roars were heard from all directions. Roar, roar, roar. The surrounding zombies pounced on them. All of the psychics felt their hearts skip a beat. They spread out their telekinesis. At the same time, each psychokinesis had at least 12 flying knives. They used their telekinesis to control the flying daggers, forming a barrier of light around the hunting group. A zombie that just entered the range of the light was instantly killed by a piercing through the head. Puff, 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 puff. Hundreds of thousands of zombies had their heads pierced through almost in an instant. The surrounding flying knives were all stained with blood in an instant. The flying knives were stained with blood. The shield of light was also blood red. Of course, under the cover of the blood fog, those hunters could not see all of this. They could only hear the endless roars of countless zombies. From this, one could imagine the intensity of the battle. For a full 5 minutes, tens of thousands of zombies fell under the flying knives. But these zombies were just ordinary zombies. As for the mutated zombies around, they had not made a move yet. They were biding their time. Sister Ponytail and the other psychokinesis patients all had grave expressions on their faces. They could feel that the zombies around them were like an endless flood. Although their telekinesis attacks were strong, there would always be a time when they would be exhausted. At that time, no one would be able to stop the zombies. At this moment, a roar was heard. Roar! Along with this roar, the zombies suddenly stopped attacking and roaring. The surroundings instantly went from a state of intense battle to a dead silence. All the hunters were stunned. They could not see anything and could only rely on their hearing. But just now, The battle was clearly very intense, so why did it suddenly become quiet? Psychokinesis, on the other hand, used psychokinesis to investigate. He found that the surrounding zombies were continuously moving to the side. A path was left open. Then one after another, huge figures appeared in these tunnels. Each of them was 5 meters long. He was about 1.5 meters tall. Their bodies were covered in thick and heavy scales. This is a mutated giant crocodile. Psychokinesis exclaimed. When the surrounding hunters heard this, their expressions changed. They had seen almost all mutated beasts, but they had never heard of a mutated giant crocodile. Roar! The roar of a wild beast was heard. Roar! Roar! Dozens, even hundreds of roars sounded at the same time. Everyone's expression changed when they heard this. Sister Ponytail quickly said, "Psychokinesis, pay attention to those mutated giant crocodiles. Hunters on the periphery, prepare for battle." Yes. Everyone's expression froze. At this moment, the first mutated giant crocodile had already entered the range of the flying daggers. Suddenly, dozens of flying daggers, like thousands of swords, attacked it. Whoosh 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 whoosh. However, all the flying daggers only left a few sparks on the mutated giant crocodile's body. The flying daggers collided with the scales on its body, making a shrill sound. Ding 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 ding. Seeing this, Sister Ponytail's heart sank. She quickly gathered her psychokinesis and controlled the 24 flying daggers to stab the mutated giant crocodile. Puff 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 puff. The 24 flying daggers, without exception, all pierced the head of the mutated giant crocodile. However, although these flying daggers pierced the head of the mutated giant crocodile, they only went half an inch in. And such a small injury did not affect the mutated giant crocodile at all with its thick scales. Instead, it provoked the mutated giant crocodile's ferocity. It roared and pounced on the hunters. It opened its mouth. Crack! With just one bite, 3 hunters were bitten in half. Sister Ponytail was shocked and roared. Psychokinesis, attack the mutated giant crocodile with all your might. Therefore, the psychokinesis of the 13 psychokinesis, including Sister Ponytail, twisted together their psychokinesis. They controlled more than 100 flying daggers. They attacked the mutated giant crocodile together. Whoosh 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 whoosh. Sister Ponytail's flying daggers first left wounds on the mutated giant crocodile's body. The other psychokinesis flying daggers took the opportunity to attack these wounds. Puff 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 puff. For a full minute, the mutated giant crocodile's body was covered in wounds and dripping with blood. Finally, it roared unwillingly and its huge head finally hung down. However, before the hunter group could breathe a sigh of relief, mutated giant crocodiles appeared in almost all directions. There were more than 300 mutated giant crocodiles. They pounced at the hunter group in the center at an extremely fast speed. Sister Ponytail was the first to sense the 300 mutated giant crocodiles. At this moment, her face was ashen. The rest of the psychokinesis felt their hands and feet turn cold after sensing the 300 mutated giant crocodiles. Their hearts sank to the bottom of the valley. The 13 psychokinesis had only managed to kill one mutated giant crocodile with great difficulty. Now more than 300 mutated giant crocodiles pounced at them at the same time. They had no way to deal with it. Fire! Sister Ponytail roared loudly. Those hunters carried firearms with them. When they heard this, although they could not see their target, they all pulled the trigger at the surrounding blood fog. Da-da-da-da-da. Thousands of rifles spat out tongues of fire at the blood fog. Ding 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 ding. In the blood fog, the sound of metal clashing could be heard. When everyone heard this sound, their expressions became extremely ugly. When the bullets hit these mutated giant crocodiles, other than splashing a few sparks, they did not have any effect at all. And those mutated giant crocodiles were getting closer and closer. At the same time, there were zombies attacking together with the mutated giant crocodiles. Thousands of zombies. Moreover, those mutated zombies that had not made a move until now finally moved this time. Following these mutated giant crocodiles, they attacked the hunter group. 100 meters, 50 meters, 20 meters. All the psychokinesis had fallen into deep despair. It was over. It was completely over. In front of this flood of zombies and mutated giant crocodiles, it would not take more than 20 minutes. Their entire hunter group would be wiped out. And those hunters, although they could not see, but they could hear, tens of thousands of roars, tens of thousands of roars, the sound of rolling footsteps like muffled thunder. They were as if they were in the middle of a storm. In front of nature, humans were so desperate. At this moment they were so desperate. However, at this moment, a shocking roar suddenly came out. Roar. Chapter 29. They listened to the rumbling footsteps around them. Thousands of roars. All the members of the hunter group were wrapped in overwhelming despair. In extreme despair, they couldn't help but look at Commander Ma in the center. If there was anyone who could save them now, it would be the mysterious powerhouse, Commander Ma. However, only the deputy commander, Yang Kong, knew. Commander Ma was not the mysterious powerhouse at all. Commander Ma was indeed very strong. The most powerful existence in the hunter group. Even if more than 50 hunters attacked her together, they might not be her opponent. Psychokinesis combined was not as strong as her. However, compared to the mysterious powerhouse in Yang Kang's impression, she was still far, far away. However, Yang Kong did not despair because of this. If there was someone who had the strongest desire to survive at this time, then it was only him. He had a belief in his heart. No matter what, he could not die. 3 years ago, his wife had passed away due to illness. Only the father and daughter were left to rely on each other. His daughter was still waiting for him at the base. If he died here, how would his daughter live alone in the future? So no matter what, he had to live. Under the current circumstances, his only hope of survival was the mysterious powerhouse. He forced himself to believe that the mysterious powerhouse was nearby. The mysterious powerhouse would not leave him in the lurch. In this situation of crisis, when Fontuan was about to be wiped out, suddenly, a shocking roar was heard. Roar, roar. This roar was like the birth of a giant beast that could destroy the world. It was like the roar of an ancient dragon. The tens of thousands of zombies trembled when they heard the roar. These ordinary zombies should not have any emotions. There should not be any fear. But at this moment, when they heard this roar, they turned around and fled. As if it was the roar of the devil. The more than 300 mutated giant crocodiles also trembled after hearing this roar. Then, all the mutated giant crocodiles turned around and fled. In fact, after this roar, Li Qiye's expression changed drastically. Even the surrounding blood mist instantly rolled away. When the blood mist quickly retreated, everyone saw the surrounding situation. The thousands of zombies fled in all directions. Many zombies even fell to the ground and were trampled by the zombies behind them. They seemed to be able to hear the sound of the zombies' limbs being broken. As for those mutated giant crocodiles, they were even more terrified and quickly fled. The zombies in front of them were mercilessly trampled into meat paste. Everyone in the hunting group looked at all of this with incomparable horror. Miss Ponytail was also extremely shocked. The ponytail that had been swinging back and forth in front of the men was no longer swinging. Because of the shock, all the psychokinesis people controlled the knife throwing. At this moment, all of them fell to the ground with tinkling sounds, including Sister Ponytail. With a roar, tens of thousands of zombies and over 300 mutated giant crocodiles were scared away. What in the world was it? How could it be so powerful? Yang Kang's heart skipped a beat. A mysterious expert. At the same time, at the entrance of the residential area, Mo Shi, who was wearing a camouflage uniform, was standing there motionlessly. His skin was the same color as the surrounding weeds. The camouflage uniform was also the same color as the surrounding grass. His entire person seemed to have become one with the surrounding environment. When he had just rushed over the blood demons, I saw through the layers of blood mist and saw that the hunting group was almost wiped out. He immediately opened his mouth. The corpse roar technique was used. With a roar, tens of thousands of zombies were scared away. As for the 300 mutated giant crocodiles, they fled because they felt the aura of the mutated giant crocodile king on him. After injecting the mutated giant crocodile king gene enhancer, his body would emit the aura of the mutated giant crocodile king. With a roar, It was easy to scare away 300 mutated giant crocodiles. However, was it over? Since Emosure had already come, how could he watch these zombies and the 300 mutated giant crocodiles escape? He watched the tens of thousands of zombies drilling into the surrounding residential buildings. Then he saw the 300 mutated giant crocodiles drilling into every corner of the residential area. He smiled faintly. His telekinesis instantly spread out. In the next moment, he saw that in the courtyard, more than 3,000 people in the hunting group fell to the ground at the same time. Emosure's telekinesis could control any object under 50 kilograms. Although he couldn't throw these people away. However, in a situation where they were unprepared, it was easy to trip them to the ground. More than 3,000 people in the hunting group fell to the ground at the same time. How spectacular! More than 3,000 people in the hunting group were all terrified. Could it be that after scaring away the zombies and mutated giant crocodiles, he was going to fight them? Just as everyone in the hunting group was shocked and wanted to crawl out of the hole, Emosure moved. The bones in his right hand made cracking sounds. His entire right hand quickly became bigger. In a moment, his entire right hand turned into a wide, pitch-black axe blade. The axe blade was half-moon-shaped. At its widest part, it was more than a meter wide. This was the genetic martial art that was formed in his body after he evolved into a hunter. For 5 years, he had never used his full strength. This time, he would try his full strength. At this moment, his eyes flashed. His right arm swept across. The axe blade quickly expanded as he swept across. In just a moment, it expanded to more than 500 meters wide. This more than 500 meters wide, half-moon-shaped huge axe blade swept across half a meter above the ground. Everyone only saw a huge black shadow, less than a meter above their heads, sweeping past at an extremely fast speed. The next moment, they saw all the zombies that were running away. Their bodies were instantly cut in half. Tens of thousands of zombies were cut in half at the same time. How magnificent was this scene! Even those mutated zombies, without exception, were cut into 2 pieces. And zombies wouldn't die if their heads weren't severely injured. But now, after these zombies were cut in half at the waist, they all fell to the ground motionless. It was as if the black shadow just now had some kind of factor that could restrain zombies. Mutated zombies had self-healing factors in their bodies. Their wounds would heal quickly. But now, after being cut in half, their wounds didn't show any signs of healing. It wasn't just these zombies. All the mutated giant crocodiles were also cut in half by this black shadow. They were originally running away crazily. But as they ran, they were cut in half. This made everyone's eyes widen. Psychokinesis had just spent a lot of effort to kill a mutated giant crocodile. But now, more than 300 mutated giant crocodiles were instantly killed by that black shadow. How sharp was that black shadow? Previously, the entire community was filled with the roars of zombies and mutated giant crocodiles. At this moment, it instantly fell into a dead silence. Even the members of the hunter group who were alive didn't make a sound. Everyone looked at the corpses on the ground around them, smelling the bloody smell that assaulted their noses. They were all shocked to the extreme. How powerful must one be to be able to do all this? Gulp. It wasn't until a moment later that a hunter's throat made a swallowing sound. This sound seemed to have triggered a chain effect. Gulp, gulp, gulp. Almost everyone's throat kept making swallowing sounds. Chapter 30. Only the last ray of the setting sun was left on the horizon. But this ray of setting sun made the entire horizon as red as blood. The entire abandoned community was also dyed red. There were more than 3,000 zombie hunters in this community. But these 3,000 zombie hunters were all dumbstruck. Their faces were all full of shock. Gulp. After a while, the sound of swallowing saliva was heard one after another. At this moment, they finally understood why more than 3,000 of them fell at the same time. Obviously, it was done by the person who killed these zombies and mutated giant crocodiles. If they didn't fall to the ground just now, all of them would definitely end up like these zombies, killing more than 300 mutated giant crocodiles and tens of thousands of zombies in an instant. Just one move. This made many people recall what happened 5 years ago. At that time, a mysterious powerhouse suddenly appeared and killed thousands of zombies in an instant. And now he killed tens of thousands of zombies and more than 300 mutated giant crocodiles in an instant. Who else could have such means besides him? Thinking of this, everyone looked at Commander Ma. They instinctively thought of Commander Ma. After all, they had always thought that the mysterious powerhouse from 5 years ago was Commander Ma. However, when they saw Commander Ma fall to the ground like them, they were stunned. All of them were stunned. It seemed that the person who attacked was not Commander Ma at all. Moreover, that roar just now shocked tens of thousands of zombies and more than 300 mutated giant crocodiles. It was not Commander Ma at all. The 12 psychokinesis people saw it even more clearly. With their telekinesis, they could clearly feel that the person who attacked just now was standing in the direction of the community's gate. They hurriedly looked at the gate. However, as far as their eyes could see, there was no one. At this time, Commander Ma was already too ashamed to show his face. Was he finally going to be exposed? These zombie hunters had always thought of themselves as the mysterious powerhouse. They worshipped and believed in themselves. They had no doubts about their orders. But now, they found out that they had been deceiving them all along. What should they think? Yang Kong was the first to stand up. Because he was excited, he used too much strength when he stood up and almost fell to the ground again. His eyes were like a radar, constantly searching around. 5 years ago, the mysterious powerhouse saved him. 5 years later, he was saved by the mysterious powerhouse again. He was not afraid of death. But he was afraid that his daughter would lose her support. If he died here today, how would his daughter survive alone? And now, the mysterious expert had not only saved his life, it was also to ensure that his daughter would not lose him as her pillar of support. He was afraid that he would never be able to repay this kindness in this lifetime. He just wanted to say thank you to that mysterious expert. However, as far as he could see, there was no mysterious expert. He searched for a long time. He withdrew his gaze in disappointment. In the end, he turned his gaze back to Sister Ponytail. He had already made up his mind. He was unable to repay the favor of the mysterious expert. But at the very least, he wanted to let everyone know that all of this was not done by Commander Ma, but by a mysterious expert. This was the only thing he could do for the mysterious expert. However, before he could speak, a shocking roar could be heard all of a sudden. Aolo roar. All the members of the hunter group were shocked. However, they could clearly tell that this roar was not from the same creature as the one that had repelled all the zombies just now. Moreover, the two roars came from different directions. The previous roar came from the gate of the residential area, and this roar came from the back door of the residential area. The next moment, accompanied by this roar, a huge figure quickly appeared. Everyone in the hunter group was startled when they saw the figure. It was also a mutated giant crocodile. However, this mutated giant crocodile was several times larger than the other mutated giant crocodiles. From head to toe, it was more than 30 meters long. It was taller than a one-story building. Such a huge mutated giant crocodile made everyone's expression change. This was the largest mutated creature they had seen so far. Obviously, this mutated giant crocodile should be a mutated giant crocodile king. It was covered with huge scales that were about half a meter in diameter. On its back, there was a triangular spine that was the size of a table. It was like a table-sized sharp blade that extended from its neck to the tip of its tail. On its head, there were dozens of thick barbs that were more than a meter long. This made its entire body look even more ferocious. It spread its foreclaws and ran quickly toward the hunting group. It was like a fast-moving hill. Rumble, rumble. Because of its running, the ground kept shaking. Behind it, a cloud of dust rose like a sandstorm. Miss Ponytail saw this and quickly shouted, "Dodge." Only then did everyone come back to their senses, and hurriedly dodged to the sides. If they did not dodge, they would be trampled into meat paste by this mutated giant crocodile king. In the next moment, the mutated giant crocodile king ran past them. When the mutated giant crocodile king ran past, they could clearly feel the huge and terrifying aura on its body, and the smell of blood that assailed their nostrils. The remaining glass on the surrounding buildings fell to the ground as it ran past. This sent chills down everyone's spines. Its tail inadvertently swept across the corner of a residential building. Rumble. A large part of the corner of the building was actually swept away by its huge tail. The abandoned cars in the residential area were like toys under its huge claws. They were easily trampled into metal sheets. However, the mutated giant crocodile king's target was obviously not them. When it ran past these people, it did not pay attention to them at all. Instead, it turned a corner and ran straight toward the entrance of the residential area. Everyone understood what he meant. It was very obvious that it was running toward the mysterious expert. Then, could the mysterious expert defeat it? At the same time, at the entrance of the residential area, in the grass that was half the height of a person, Immortal was standing there in a carefree manner. However, in his heart, he was also shocked by his own move. The power of this genetic martial art was actually so great. These people from the hunting group thought that what they saw was already very strong. However, only Immortal knew that the power of the axe blade was much stronger than what they had seen. After retrieving his genetic martial art, Immortal looked at the mutated giant crocodile king. His right arm had become 3 times thicker. His entire right arm was covered by black scales the size of a fingernail. His right hand had turned into a dragon claw. The sharp dragon claw flashed with a cold light under the last ray of the setting sun. He slowly raised his head. He looked at the mutated giant crocodile king that was running like 10,000 horses galloping. The mutated giant crocodile king was getting closer and closer to him. 300 meters, he did not move. 150 meters. He still did not move. 100 meters, he stood there calmly, as if nothing had happened, facing the berserk mutated giant crocodile king. At this moment, he looked like a lonely boat in front of a tsunami, or like a lonely lamp in front of a hurricane. Finally, when the mutated giant crocodile king was only 50 meters away from him, his eyes shone with a bright light. He jumped up. Chapter 31. When the mutated giant crocodile king was only 50 meters away from Immortal, he finally made his move. His eyes shone brightly. His body leaped up. Facing the mutated giant crocodile king that was pouncing over, he jumped up. His right claw swung diagonally from the top right to the bottom left. Swish! An invisible force shot out from the Titan's dragon claw. The lone boat turned into Noah's Ark at this moment. The lone lantern burst out with dazzling light at this moment. The mutated giant crocodile king that had just pounced in front of Immortal was instantly torn into 2 halves. Immortal could clearly see that its pair of blood-red eyes were filled with fear and despair. Immortal sighed in his heart. There was no one who could fight. At the same time, after the invisible force killed the mutated giant crocodile king, it continued to extend outwards. If someone could see the invisible chi, they would see that it was 5 transparent chi in the shape of sharp claws. This invisible force in an instant crossed hundreds of meters. From the top right to the bottom left, it brazenly crossed. At this moment, the air seemed to have been torn into a huge crack. After the invisible force passed through a residential building in the distance, a huge crack appeared from the top right to the bottom left. The next moment, rumble! The 6-story residential building collapsed with a loud bang. Smoke and dust immediately spread out. Only a slanted shadow of the residential building was left standing in the smoke and dust. At this moment, the 3,000 hunters were all aghast. They did not see how the mysterious strong man made his move. Under the twilight, at the entrance of the residential area, a blurry figure suddenly jumped up and waved his arm. The next moment, the mutated giant crocodile king that was like a small mountain was cut into 2 halves. At the same time, a huge crack appeared on a residential building. Then it collapsed. What kind of terrifying strength was this? However, it was not over yet. After the collapse of this building, the building next to it also collapsed. It also collapsed with a loud bang. Then the second building, the third building, the 4th building. More than 40 buildings in the residential area, as if they were infected, collapsed one after another. Suddenly, smoke and dust rolled in like a tsunami. In an instant, the entire residential area was submerged. After a long time, the last glimmer of light disappeared from the horizon. The moon rose slowly from the east. The smoke and dust finally dissipated. At this moment, under the moonlight, everyone saw that the neighborhood no longer existed. Only a large area of ruins remained. The only building that was still standing in the residential area was the residential building that had been cut down at an angle. Only half of it remained, standing obliquely under the cold moonlight. Seems so lonely. It was only now that everyone understood. It turned out that the attack that had killed tens of thousands of zombies and over 300 mutated crocodiles had already destroyed all the residential buildings. However, because the speed was too fast, the incision was too smooth. Therefore, there didn't seem to be anything unusual about the building. After the first residential building collapsed, the rest of the residential buildings collapsed one after another. Thinking of this, everyone was once again filled with shock. You look at me, I look at you. Everyone could clearly see the shock on each other's faces and the disbelief in their eyes. One moved to kill the giant crocodile king. A residential building behind the mutated giant crocodile king was directly cut off. They thought that this kind of combat power was already very abnormal. However, they didn't expect that the first move was the most abnormal. Not only did it kill tens of thousands of zombies and over 300 mutated giant crocodiles, moreover, it even cut down more than 40 buildings in the district. This destructive power was simply beyond their understanding. Looking at the ruins under the moonlight, everyone felt as if they were hallucinating. All of this was so unreal. Such terrifying destructive power could only be seen in myths and legends. That mysterious strong man didn't seem to be a creature of this world at all. Such destructive power, only people like Gong who rammed into Mount Bujo and Hui who shot down the sun, were qualified to have it. Thinking of this, a word appeared in everyone's mind. God. God of heaven. Only God of heaven could have such terrifying destructive power. A moment later, everyone's eyes unconsciously returned to Sister Ponytail. At this time, Sister Ponytail also felt ashamed after the extreme shock. What kind of existence was this? One moved to cut off more than 40 buildings. He was so powerful that it was simply unimaginable for her. And she actually pretended to be him for 5 whole years. It was simply stupid to the extreme. Audacious to the extreme. If that existence wanted to kill her, she was afraid that she would have died 800 times already. When she thought of this, she was overwhelmed with shame and fear. After the shock and excitement, Yang Kong was the first to stand up again. Commander Ma, tell us. Sister Ponytail felt weak all over. Her hands and feet were cold. She could feel that everyone was looking at her, as if they were looking at a notorious liar. For 5 years, these people's worship and trust in her suddenly disappeared. Only suspicion and anger were left. And at this time, that mysterious strong man might be watching her. Such a huge psychological pressure almost made her collapse. A moment later, she slowly raised her head. She whispered, I'm not the mysterious strong man at all. As soon as she said this, everyone's gazes turned from suspicion to anger, although they had already guessed this result just now. However, when they heard Regiment Commander Ma say it out loud, they were still furious. The scene was silent for a full 2 minutes. 2 minutes later, someone finally spoke. You lied to us for 5 years. Why? Why did you pretend to be the mysterious strong man? A series of furious questions could be heard. For 5 years, they trusted this person so much. But now they found out that this person had been lying to them. How could this not make them angry? Impeccable acting. If it weren't for the apocalypse, the Oscar award would have been in your bag. Sounds of mockery could be heard continuously. When Yang Kong saw this, the anger in his heart finally subsided a little. He secretly said in his heart, Benefactor, it's been 5 years. The shameless person who pretended to be you has finally been exposed. Sister Ponytail lowered her head and said nothing. After a long time, she raised her head, facing the angry questions of the people, facing the ridicule of the people. She felt much more relaxed. 5 years. She didn't want to pretend to be someone else. She wanted to be herself long ago. But the base chief didn't allow her to do so. But now, she said what was in her heart. She suddenly felt relaxed. She calmly faced the questioning and ridicule of the people. This was the retribution for pretending to be the mysterious strong man. Then she raised her voice, said to everyone, "I'm sorry." After that, she slowly turned around. In the moonlight, she walked to the distance. Now she was too ashamed to go back to the base. She could already imagine that when she returned to the base, she would face everyone's ridicule and abuse. Moreover, if she returned to the base, she was afraid that she wouldn't be able to bear too much ridicule and abuse. She would eventually tell her uncle. If these people knew that everything was instigated by her uncle, their base chief, what would they think? The people were easily led. If they knew all this, would they calm down and listen to her uncle's explanation? With her understanding of human nature, it was impossible in a short time. At that time, she couldn't imagine what the angry people would do. However, her uncle was the pillar of the entire base. If her uncle fell, the consequences would be unimaginable. So she could only bear all this by herself. Chapter 32. Under the moonlight, in the ruins of the residential building. After Big Sis Ponytail said, "I'm sorry" to everyone, she slowly turned around and left. The angry hunters were all stunned. Yang Kong was also slightly surprised. Guo Jutao, the first captain, took 2 steps forward. He said in a somewhat feminine voice, "Ma, Captain, where are you going?" Miss Ponytail didn't say anything. She didn't stay and slowly left. Seeing this, Guo Jutao turned around and looked at all the hunters. He said, "Although Captain Ma lied to us all these years, she has always been conscientious in the hunting group. Under her leadership, the hunting group cleared the zombies around the base. Although she was wrong, maybe she also had some difficulties." Hearing this, everyone was silent. Yang Kong also came forward at this time. He patted Guo Jutao on the shoulder. He said, "Don't worry, maybe she has a burden in her heart for the time being, so she went back alone. Maybe she will be fine after a while." Guo Jutao nodded. He said, "Now that Captain Ma is gone, you are the supreme commander here. Captain Yang, what should we do now?" Yang Kong looked at everyone and said, "Although the zombies here have been killed, I am afraid it is still too safe. So let's go back to the base first and talk about other things later." Hearing this, everyone nodded. After that, Yang Kong led more than 3,000 people. They left the ruins of the community. They walked on the road. Along the overgrown road, they walked quickly to the base 50 kilometers away. They didn't realize that they had forgotten about the 5 researchers and the 2 zombie farmers. This time, the 5th team of the hunting group specially sent 3 members to take care of the 5 researchers and the 2 zombie farmers. As a result, 2 of the team members had been killed by zombies before. The only one left was the short-haired woman. At this time, the short-haired woman was still in a coma because of the zombie poison. In addition to what had just happened, everyone was still immersed in shock. So for a while, no one thought of the 5 researchers and the 2 zombie farmers. At the same time, 2 kilometers away from the community, on the broken bridge with vines hanging down like a waterfall, a figure was standing under the moonlight. This figure had messy long hair. His clothes were tattered. There was a terrifying bloody hole in his chest. Inside the bloody hole, the heart had already shriveled up. It was like a piece of dried bacon. His grayish-white eyes were filled with a deep shock. In fact, a long time ago, when he saw the zombie hunters hunting zombies, he had already started to plan. He planned to lure the hunting group here one day. Then they would lure out the mutated giant crocodiles from the dam and wipe out the entire hunting party. His plan went smoothly. The hunter group was indeed attracted. The mutated giant crocodile was indeed lured over. However, he had never expected that a mysterious expert would suddenly appear. One strike. Just one strike. Tens of thousands of his subordinates were instantly killed. Even the 300 mutated giant crocodiles were killed instantly. Furthermore, the entire residential area collapsed with a loud rumble. What frightened him the most was that he still hadn't seen that mysterious expert. He couldn't help but doubt himself. Could it be that humans were already this powerful? With such strength, would the mutated zombies still have room to survive? At the same time, He also remembered the night 5 years ago. At that time, he sent a few mutated zombies with dozens of zombies to sneak into the base through the sewers and infect the residential area. He was about to succeed. But suddenly, a mysterious expert appeared. At that time, the mysterious expert killed thousands of zombies with one strike. But it was far from being as abnormal as it was now. In these 5 years, the mysterious expert's growth rate was so terrifying. If he continued to succeed, wouldn't even the leader be his opponent? After a long time, he slowly came back to his senses. Fortunately, there was still the leader. He was the leader of these zombies. But above him, there was still the leader. The leader's strength was unfathomable. He had seen with his own eyes that the leader just roared and shook off thousands of mutated beasts that besieged him. He had also seen the leader stomp his foot, and the entire stadium stands collapsed. That kind of strength should be enough to suppress this human expert. After all, that human expert needed to rely on weapons, while the zombie leader relied only on physical strength. It was clear at a glance who was strong and who was weak. It seemed that it was time to find the leader. Thinking of this, he turned around. However, the next moment, his body suddenly trembled. His gaze seemed to be trembling, because behind him, under the moonlight, a human was looking at him jokingly. There was a faint smile on his face. This made him feel that his soul instantly left his body. How could it be? When did this human appear behind him? He didn't even notice it. One must know that his hearing was far better than that of ordinary mutated zombies. He could hear any movement within a 5-kilometer radius. His sense of smell was also far better than that of ordinary mutated zombies. Within a 5-kilometer radius, no smell could escape his nose. But at this time, not only did he not hear the movement of this human, he also did not smell the scent of this human. At this moment, in the mind of this mutated zombie, a thought suddenly flashed. Mysterious expert. This was the mysterious expert that those humans were talking about. The one who killed tens of thousands of zombies with one move, and killed more than 300 mutated giant crocodiles at the same time. He also split the mutated giant crocodile king in half with one move, and destroyed the existence of the entire community. Thinking of this, in the chest of this mutated zombie, the heart that had not moved for 10 years, shriveled like bacon. It suddenly twitched. The next moment he suddenly jumped. He jumped down from the broken bridge. Facing this human, he could not summon the slightest thought of resistance. The only thing he could do was to escape. This broken bridge was located between two mountains, more than 50 meters high. If he still had the slightest chance of escaping, he could only jump off the broken bridge. However, it turned out that he thought too much. He had just fallen more than 10 meters. An iron chain as thick as an arm suddenly chased down from above. It instantly wrapped around his chest. Then he felt a huge force tugging at him. The chain instantly tightened into his body. Gotcha! His body was actually torn into two by the chains. From the neck down, it had been broken into pieces, falling under the bridge. The other half, only the head was left. Fortunately, as a high-level mutated zombie, as long as his head did not explode, there was room for resurrection. However, it turned out that he thought too much again. When his head fell halfway, it suddenly floated up uncontrollably. At this moment, this zombie's mind was filled with despair. From zombies, mutated zombies, all the way to high-level mutated zombies. He walked step by step and experienced many cruel competitions. Only then did he have today's strength. But now he had lost his body. His head flew up uncontrollably. How could this not make him despair? Soon his head flew to the bridge. It just floated in front of the human out of thin air. Immortal had a faint smile on his face. Looking at this mutated zombie, he asked, "I'm a little curious. How did you control those mutated giant crocodiles?" The mutated zombie grinned. Hiss. His mouth tore open automatically and reached behind his ears. He revealed a mouthful of sharp teeth. It seemed that he wanted to roar out. But at this time, he only had his head left. Even his vocal cords were gone. Naturally, he could not make a sound. Immortal smiled faintly. "You don't want to say? It doesn't matter. I'm just a little curious." The next moment his telekinesis moved. Boom. The mutated zombies had suddenly burst into a cloud of blood mist. Under the moonlight, it looked like a small cluster of blood-red fireworks. The mutated zombies' last thought was, I don't even have my fucking vocal cords. What can I say? Chapter 33. After Emosher killed the mutated zombie, he felt a little tired. His legs were also a little weak. He understood that this should be because he had used too much of his energy to attack with his genetic weapon just now. The attack of his genetic weapon had flattened the entire residential area. Its power was not much weaker than a missile. It was normal for it to consume a lot of energy. Fortunately, he had recovery medicine. He casually took out a bottle and poured it into his mouth. Soon, he felt that there seemed to be an endless stream of energy growing in every cell of his body. The feeling of tiredness was slightly relieved. However, one bottle of recovery medicine was clearly not enough to completely recover his physical strength. He poured another 4 bottles of recovery medicine into his mouth. Only then did he feel that his physical strength had completely recovered. He felt refreshed once again, and became a spirited young man. Only then did he slowly walk towards the slope beside the dam. Beside the dam, Happy heard a shocking roar coming from the residential area. He had been on tenterhooks. He held the small bottle that Emocho gave him tightly in his hand. When he saw Emosher return, he finally let out a sigh of relief. He quickly walked towards Emosher to greet him. His eyes were fixed on Emosher. Emosher knew what she meant and said with a smile, I'm fine. Happy was clearly relieved. Emosher said again, I saw from afar that the hunter group had already returned. They forgot about us. A hint of panic flashed in Happy's eyes. Emosher comforted him. But I saw that the zombies nearby have been cleared, so we are still very safe. Emosher nodded and smiled at Emosher. Even under the moonlight, he could see her pure smile. Every time he saw this smile, Emosher would feel much better. He asked, Are you hungry? Happy nodded. Emosher took out 2 steamed buns from his backpack. The 2 of them shared the food. Emosher naturally did not take out the water and food he had obtained from signing in. That was his secret. Even if he was facing Happy, he could not reveal it. After eating, the 2 of them found a place to sit down and rest. They waited for the researchers and the short-haired woman to wake up. Looking at these people who were still unconscious, Emosher thought of a problem. Just now, these people had breathed in the blood mist, which was why they fainted. Why didn't the members of the hunting group faint after inhaling the blood mist? No matter how much he thought about it, he couldn't think of a reason. Emosher shook his head, too lazy to think about it any further. What he was most afraid of was trouble. Since he couldn't figure it out, he decided to ignore it for now. Those people were unconscious for more than 5 hours. Emosher saw that it was already 12 o'clock in the office. They won't wake up yet. He gestured to Happy that he was going to the toilet. Then they turned a corner. Then he strode toward the ruins of the residential area. Soon they arrived at the ruins. The voice in his mind said, System sign in. The system replied instantly once again, Sign in successful. Sign in location, residential ruins. Sign in reward 1 ancient map. Map. It was Emosher's first time signing out a map. Also, what did the ruins of the residential area have to do with the map? He immediately took out the map with his mind. The map was irregular in shape and soft in texture. It should be the skin of some kind of animal. He turned on the solar flashlight that he had obtained from signing in, and looked at the map. The map should be the map of ancient Wuxia. The mountains, rivers, and cities were marked in great detail in traditional calligraphy. In the upper left corner of the map, there was a triangular symbol that marked the location. Beside it were 4 words written in calligraphy, Dragon Ruins. Dragon Ruins? Emosher frowned slightly. He waited for the system to explain. However, the system didn't respond. Emosher could only guess based on the sign-in location. The ancient words were more condensed. The dragon ruins marked on the map should be referring to the dragon's cave ruins. Could it be that dragons had really appeared on Earth before? The system gave him this map probably to ask him to go to the dragon's cave ruins. He might be able to find something good there. Even if he couldn't find anything good, he would definitely be able to obtain huge benefits by signing in at the Dragon's Cave ruins. However, Immortal glanced at the location on the map. He saw that the location of the dragon ruins was not far from the place where the virus first broke out. When the virus broke out, there were no preventive measures there. Presumably, that place had now become the nest of zombies and mutated beasts. Even if he had the strength to destroy 40 buildings in one move, he would probably be sending himself to death if he wanted to barge in there. Moreover, the all-out attack of genetic martial arts consumed too much of his body. He wouldn't be able to hold on for more than a few minutes. Therefore, it was better to hide in the base and sign in slowly. When his strength was above everything in this world, he would go there to take a look. Thinking of this, Immortal put away the map. He threw it into the system backpack. This time, when he returned to the dam, those people finally woke up. The short-haired woman shook her head and kept patting the back of her head with her hand. Then she looked at the others who had just woken up and asked, "Are you guys okay?" Everyone shook their heads. She stood up and looked around vigilantly. A moment later, she saw the mutated giant crocodile corpses lying around the dam not far away. She couldn't help but reveal a look of shock. This is a mutated giant crocodile? Those researchers were also shocked when they saw these mutated giant crocodile corpses. Over the years, they had dissected many mutated beast corpses in the research lab. But it was the first time they had seen such a huge mutated beast like the mutated giant crocodile. After carefully observing, the short-haired woman said, "The scales of these mutated giant crocodiles are very thick. I'm afraid even bullets can't penetrate them. To be able to kill so many mutated giant crocodiles, I wonder who did it." A researcher said, "Maybe it's Deputy Commander Yang. He's now a level 7 zombie hunter." The short-haired woman nodded in agreement. If there was anyone who could do this, it would probably only be a level 7 zombie hunter. Then, the short-haired woman checked the surroundings again. Seeing that there was no danger, she was slightly relieved. "Where's the zombie hunter group?" she suddenly asked. Immortal said, "I just woke up and looked around. They seem to have forgotten about us. They've long disappeared." F***CK. The short-haired woman was surprised. "Are you kidding me? There are so many of us, and they forgot about us? I don't believe it." Then she jumped onto the road and looked around. But she found nothing. After returning, she said with a solemn expression, "F***CK, those damn guys, they really forgot about us. But don't worry, I'll take you back now." With that, she pulled out 2 knives. "Follow me." They left the dam and got on the road, slowly moving forward. Chapter 34. When Immortal and the others followed the short-haired woman out of the dam and onto the road. Under the broken bridge, in the pile of rocks, a heart that was as shriveled as bacon was lying there quietly. A moment later, in the sky, a mutated owl with a wingspan of 4 meters was silently flying over the broken bridge. It was looking for food. It saw the mutated giant crocodile carcasses. But obviously, it had no appetite for the mutated beast carcasses. It continued to fly forward. At a certain moment, suddenly, its eyes lit up. Then it circled down. Finally, it landed in the pile of rocks under the broken bridge. In the pile of rocks, there were a few pieces of broken body parts scattered. But its gaze did not pay attention to these pieces of flesh. Instead, it stared at the shriveled heart that was as shriveled as bacon. Then it opened its mouth and pecked at the heart. However, at this moment, a sudden change occurred. On the heart, more than 10 tentacles that looked like blood vessels instantly extended. These tentacles attached to the mutated owl's body. It was as if more than 10 iron wires were tightly wrapped around the owl. In the owl's eyes, there was a look of horror. It hurriedly flapped its wings, trying to escape. But it was too late. After those tentacles wrapped around the owl, they continued to tighten. They actually strangled into the owl's body. A moment later, the entire shriveled heart was attached to the owl's body. Finally, it merged into the mutated owl's body. Then, the mutated owl's body began to change continuously. The feathers on its body fell one after another. The flesh on its wings also slowly fell. The wing bones quickly extended. At the top of the wing bones, a pair of claws with sharp hooks grew. In the end, its wings actually turned into a pair of bat-like wings. Its eyes had also turned blood red. Then, it opened its mouth and let out a hoarse hiss. Hiss! With a flap of its wings, it quickly soared into the sky and flew towards the northwest. A moment later, it disappeared into the horizon. At the same time, in the base chief's office, the base chief looked at Yang Kong in front of him with a smile and asked, "Why are you the one reporting? Where's Commander Ma?" Yang Kong replied, "Commander Ma, she has been exposed." The base chief's smile faded slightly and asked, "What do you mean?" Yang Kong said, "She isn't the mysterious expert from back then." The base chief shook his head. "She's so strong. If she's not the mysterious expert, who is?" Yang Kong said, "Chief, it's like this." He immediately recounted what had happened in the residential area by the dam. The base chief pondered for a moment. He shook his head and sighed. "I didn't expect her to lie to us for 5 years. However, in the past 5 years, as the regiment commander, she has been cautious and conscientious and has done many things. So we still have to forgive him." It was just that the people had just found out about this and their emotions were not stable. "So don't go out for the time being and help persuade the people." Yang Kong nodded. "That's what I meant too." The base chief then turned his attention to the strength of the mysterious expert. His eyes were filled with shock. He imagined everything that had happened in the residential area by the dam. The base chief's face was also filled with undisguised shock. The mysterious expert's strength is much stronger than it was 5 years ago. Yang Kong nodded. Yes. As he spoke, Yang Kang's face also showed a yearning look. That kind of strength had already exceeded their understanding. He really couldn't understand how a human body could erupt with such powerful strength. He was now a level 7 zombie hunter, the strongest in the base. But his strength was far inferior to the mysterious expert from 5 years ago. Not to mention the mysterious expert today. That was an existence that he would never be able to reach. After a while, the base chief sighed. He said, "I don't know how the mysterious expert got such powerful strength. If he can share his method, maybe all the zombie hunters can be as powerful as him." Yang Kong shook his head and said, "Chief, I don't think so. Everyone has their own secrets. If we have to reveal this secret and anger the mysterious expert, I'm afraid." Yang Kang's family was saved by the mysterious expert. At this time, he naturally had to protect the mysterious expert. The base chief waved his hand and said with a smile, "I'm just sighing. It's the luck of everyone in our base to have him protect us. Go back and rest. We'll celebrate tomorrow." "Yes, Chief." The next morning, 7 o'clock. The east had just started to light up. Immortal and the others finally returned to the base. When Immortal and Happy returned to the zombie farm, Old Lee was wiping his tears. It turned out that the zombie hunters had returned last night, but Immortal and Happy were not there. Old Lee thought that they had all died outside the base. At that time, he shed a lot of tears. After feeding the pigs this morning, when he thought of this, he couldn't help but cry again. At this time, when he saw Immortal and Happy return, he was so happy that tears flowed again. Immortal and Happy looked at each other and felt warm in their hearts. Immortal stroked Old Lee's slightly hunched back and comforted him. At noon, the zombie hunters held a celebration party. At the celebration party, the short-haired girl received a commendation. Alone, she escorted the 5 researchers and 2 corpse rearers back to the base after a night's rest. This was obviously an amazing thing. The short-haired girl was naturally proud. In the 5 brigades, everyone despised her for being young and impulsive. She had always been criticized. Today she could finally hold her head high. Immortal only smiled at this and didn't say anything. In the next few days, the people found out that Captain Ma wasn't the mysterious powerhouse. They suddenly felt that their feelings had been greatly deceived. They had been deceived by that woman for 5 years. This made them very angry. Damn it, we were deceived by that woman for 5 years. How shameless. She actually took the mysterious powerhouse's credit for 5 years. I was also blind. I've always admired him before. Let's find him and clear the mysterious powerhouse's name. She's insulting the mysterious powerhouse. Emosure was speechless when he heard these discussions. These people sounded as if he had been defiled by Miss Ponytail. However, he didn't care about this. Every day he just quietly signed in. At the same time, he would occasionally take out the map and look at the dragon ruins on the map. A few days later, the people in the base realized that Miss Ponytail hadn't returned since that day. Everyone's anger slowly subsided. In their opinion, Miss Ponytail's exile was a wise choice. The chief of the base secretly sent people to search for her many times, but to no avail. He could only secretly feel sad. Only he knew why his niece left. She did it to protect him, the chief of the base, and for the entire base. He knew, but he couldn't say it. Sometimes, he regretted letting his niece pretend to be the mysterious powerhouse. However, he had to do it. Even now, he still insisted on this belief. He had to force the mysterious powerhouse out. Chapter 35. After the dam incident, nothing major happened in the next 3 years. Emosure still raised pigs, fed zombies, and signed in every day. His days were rather pleasant. As a level 2 hunter, his strength improved very slowly. However, after 3 years of signing in, he had injected a lot of Titan Dragon gene enhancers. He had also increased by 1 level. He became a level 3 hunter. His telekinesis had also reached a new level. He became a level 6 psychokinesis. Now he could use his telekinesis to explore a radius of 600 meters. He could control objects under 60 kilograms in the air. In other words, he could lift many humans with his telekinesis alone. In the past 3 years, all the hunters in the base had been training crazily. Last time at the dam, they had seen how terrifying the strength of a true powerhouse was. This became their motivation to become stronger. After 3 years of training, 7 of them had become level 10 hunters. However, after reaching level 10, they had reached their limit. Their strength could reach 5,499 kilograms at most. After that, no matter how they trained, they could not improve any further. They knew that they had reached their limit. However, what they did not understand was how the mysterious powerhouse broke through the limit. Since the mysterious powerhouse could break through the limit, they must be able to too. Therefore, they searched for various ways to break through the limit. However, without exception, all of them ended in failure. Emosure didn't pay any attention to this. And one day after 3 years, the peace of the base was broken again. On this day, a few soldiers were patrolling on the city wall. They saw a figure slowly walking out from the empty area in the distance. At first, the soldiers thought that it was a zombie and planned to shoot it. However, through the scope, they saw that the person was carrying a composite bow on his back. There was also a short knife on his waist. The soldiers were extremely surprised. It's a human. After all, they had never seen a zombie with a weapon. That person had messy long hair that draped over his shoulders. His clothes were tattered. He slowly came to the city gate and shouted loudly, "Open the door." The soldiers guarding the gate had never seen such a person and hesitated for a moment. They asked, "Who are you?" The man raised his head and stared at the soldiers on the city wall with his weathered eyes. His Adam's apple squirmed as he said, "An exile." What? The soldiers on the city wall were in disbelief. From the outbreak of Virus X until now, it has been more than 20 years. At that time, within a short span of half a year, Virus X had already swept across the world. Other than the 50 bases around the world, the rest of the world was filled with zombies and mutant beasts. Even if there were exiles, it was impossible for them to last for more than 20 years. The man's mouth was so dry that his skin was about to burst. He roared again, "Open the door." The soldier on the city wall pondered for a moment and said, "That's right. I have to report to the captain first." The exile seemed to be unable to suppress his anger. Suddenly he leaped. In the blink of an eye, he crossed 100 meters and arrived in front of the door. Then he threw a punch at the 5-meter-tall, 20-centimeter-thick metal gate. Bang! At this moment, the soldiers standing on the city walls felt as if the city walls were shaking. Then rumble. The thick and heavy city gate collapsed inwards with a loud rumble. All the soldiers were shocked when they saw this. What kind of inhuman strength was this? Perhaps only that mysterious expert could do that. The exile knocked down the city gate with a single punch. He jumped into the city gate. Immediately, dozens of guns were aimed at him. The exile's lips cracked, and his Adam's apple moved with difficulty. He said, "Give me water." The group of soldiers looked at each other one by one. A soldier said, "You came from the wild. You must be tested for the virus first." The exile's eyes were suddenly filled with anger. Then he suddenly jumped. In an instant he was 100 meters away. He grabbed the water bottle on a soldier's waist. He exerted force. Bang! He broke the water bottle's strap. He didn't even have time to unscrew the lid. He cut with his right hand. Bang! The metal water bottle's lid, together with the mouth, was cut off by his palm. Then he raised his head and brought the water bottle to his mouth. Gulp, gulp, gulp. He gulped down the water. The surrounding soldiers thought that he was going to attack and quickly raised their guns. But they saw that he was just drinking water and didn't have any intention to attack. The captain signaled everyone to not shoot first. The refugee poured a full pot of water and looked at another soldier. "Give me water." That soldier glanced at the captain. The captain nodded. The soldier took down the water bottle and threw it to the man. Only then did the exile open the bottle cap. He gulped it down. After drinking 2 bottles of water, he said to the captain, "Food." The captain frowned and said, "I can give you food, but you have to do a virus test first." The exile glared at the captain and threw away the water bottle. Then he jumped 100 meters in an instant. He headed towards the second line of defense. Seeing this, the captain hurriedly used the radio to report to the base. "There's an outsider. He's an exile. He didn't do a virus test." At the same time, the entire base's alarm had already sounded. Beep, beep, beep. At the same time, a hurried sound came from the base's loudspeaker. "There's a foreign exile who broke in. He didn't do a virus test. Everyone, return to the room immediately. If you encounter that exile, you must not have any contact with him. Attention, he's very strong. He might be an existence that surpasses a level 10 zombie hunter." In the base, when people heard this voice, they immediately hurriedly hid in their own houses. In the zombie farm, Immortal heard this voice. His mind moved slightly. It had been 13 years since he transmigrated. This was the first time he had heard of an exile. To be able to be an exile in the world outside the base where zombies and mutated beasts were rampant, he must not be a simple person. And he was actually an existence that surpassed a level 10 zombie hunter. Could he be a hunter? That was a bit interesting. Thinking of this, he used his telekinesis to cover a radius of 600 meters. At the same time, the exile strode towards Area A. After a moment, there was a slight pause. Seeing the 2 words cafeteria from afar, he immediately rushed over at full speed. The chefs in the cafeteria were currently closing the doors and windows and hiding in the cafeteria. However, after the exile arrived, he directly crashed into the reinforced cafeteria door with his body. Boom! The cafeteria door was immediately knocked down. The steel plate on the door was also deformed from the impact. Seeing this, the chefs all looked at each other. After the previous mutated zombie incident, all the doors and windows in the base were re-reinforced. And in a place like the cafeteria where many people could hide, the doors and windows were even installed with 2-centimeter thick steel plates. This person actually directly deformed the 2-centimeter thick steel plates. How hard did his body have to be? How strong was his strength? At this time, Immortal was also slightly surprised. His telekinesis was just enough to explore the cafeteria. Feeling the scene that happened here, he nodded and said, "It seems that he is indeed a hunter." And judging from the person's speed, he could reach about 120 meters per second. He should be a level 2 hunter. Chapter 36. Immortal found that the person was most likely a level 2 hunter, which made him very curious. With his experience, after reaching level 10 hunter, his body had been strengthened to the limit. If he didn't use the X2 virus enhancer to make his genes undergo a certain qualitative change, It would be impossible to become a hunter. He also signed into the system to get the X2 virus enhancer. How did this exile get it? After the exile broke into the cafeteria, he saw the steamed buns and porridge being prepared. His eyes immediately lit up. One steamed bun in each hand and stuffed it into his mouth. When he choked, he drank a few mouthfuls of porridge and continued to stuff the steamed buns. The chefs were all dumbfounded. How many days had he been starving for him to be able to eat like this? After a while, the leader of the hunting squad, Yang Kong, the deputy leader, Guo Jiutao, and the others rushed over with dozens of hunters. They surrounded the cafeteria. Other hunters were still rushing over. The exile didn't finish eating until now. He let out a burp. Rubbing his belly, he walked out in satisfaction. Without waiting for the others to speak, he spoke first. If you want to do a virus test, I'll do it. Half an hour later, the virus test results were out. It turned out that there was a virus in this person's body. However, the virus wasn't the X virus, but a mutated virus similar to the virus in mutated zombies. As soon as the results came out, everyone became nervous again. The exile was quarantined in the office of the corpse hunters in Area A. The exile was very cooperative and didn't resist. However, no matter who asked him, he didn't respond. More than an hour later, the base chief arrived. He entered the office and went straight to the point. I'm the base chief, you can tell me anything. The exile finally spoke. My name is Lu Wang, I'm from base C9. Hearing this, the chief looked this person up and down. After the virus outbreak, all over the world tried to build safe bases. In the end, 58 safe bases were successfully built. 10 bases were built in the country, numbered C1 to C10. In the first few years, the bases were still in contact. However, after more than 20 years, all kinds of communication facilities lost maintenance and basically couldn't operate. Therefore, the bases had lost contact with each other. He didn't expect to see someone from another base today. The base chief asked again. Why did you come to base C1? Lu Wang replied. 3 months ago, base C9 was breached. Immortal frowned slightly when he heard this. The base chief also frowned. Base C9 was much more dangerous than base C1. It was easy to defend and hard to attack. How could it be breached? Lu Wang continued. A lot of powerful mutated zombies have appeared, and they have broken through the walls of the base. Fortunately, we have over 100 hunters in our base. We fought with those mutated zombies and finally killed them. However, we also suffered heavy losses. Of the hundreds of hunters, only 20 were left. The base was destroyed, and there were countless casualties. In the end, only a little more than 1,000 people were left. They entered the underground emergency shelter. But the emergency shelter's resources are only enough for those 1,000 people for half a year. That's why the chief of the base sent 3 hunters to your base C1 for help. But on the way, the 2 hunters. At this point, Lu Wang's eyes trembled. No more words were spoken. The base chief was silent for a moment and asked, The hunters you mentioned are stronger than the zombie hunters? Lu Wang nodded. Our base's laboratory research found that level 10 zombie hunters have reached their limit. At this time, as long as they are injected with the X2 virus, they can successfully break through the limit and become a hunter. The base chief heard this and a hint of joy appeared on his face. He said, Lu Wang, our base can send people to go with you to pick up those 1,000 people. Lu Wang immediately said gratefully, Thank you, Chief. The base chief said, But before that, you have to cooperate with our laboratory to produce the X2 virus evolution agent. This can also increase the success rate of saving people. Lu Wang nodded heavily. Yes, I will cooperate. By the way, Chief, the X2 virus evolution agent can only be used by people who have reached the body's limit with a strength of 5,499 kilograms. If you can't reach the body's limit, you will become a zombie after the injection. The base chief nodded. You can discuss this with the researchers in the laboratory. Immortal heard this and understood. I see. However, the fact that base C9 was breached was beyond his expectations. It seemed that the mutated zombies were getting stronger. He had to go to other places to check in. He had to improve his strength as soon as possible. In the following days, the base quickly developed the X2 virus evolution agent with the help of the exile Lu Wang. After the injection, the 7-level, 10 zombie hunters successfully evolved into level 1 hunters. Compared to before, his strength had undergone an earth-shaking change. This made all the zombie hunters very excited. They had to step up their training and strive to become hunters as soon as possible. Emosher saw this and felt a sense of urgency in his heart. The mutated zombies were getting stronger and stronger. He couldn't just stay in the base and check in. According to his previous experience, the rewards for checking in outside the base were far better than inside the base. So that night, when it was late at night, he sneaked out of the base. With his current strength, it was not difficult to sneak out of the base without anyone noticing. Out of the base, he went straight to the abandoned city not far from the base. Although the zombies in this abandoned city had been cleared out before, it hadn't been cleared out for 3 years. However, they hadn't cleaned up the area for 3 years, and now some zombies had wandered into the area. However, these ordinary zombies were easily killed by Emosher, who controlled the stones. He killed more than 30 zombies in a row. He came to the abandoned hospital in the city. His psychic power covered a radius of 600 meters. He found that there was no danger. He opened his mouth and said, "System sign in." Sign in successful. Sign in location, abandoned hospital. Sign in reward, Titan Dragon Gene Enhancer, enhanced version. Emosher's eyes lit up when he saw this reward. As his level increased, the effect of the previous gene enhancer had become very weak. Otherwise, he wouldn't have only leveled up once in 3 years. He didn't know how effective this enhanced version of the gene enhancer was. With a thought, he took out the enhanced version of the gene enhancer. He injected it into his left arm. A moment later, he felt the burning sensation in his body again. Emosher was delighted. He was very familiar with this feeling. This was the precursor to leveling up. Soon his body became hotter and hotter. It was so hot that his face and neck were burning. However, this feeling only lasted for 5 minutes. 5 minutes later, his body temperature quickly returned to normal, and his body seemed to be filled with strength again. Finally, I leveled up. Chapter 37. Finally, I've leveled up again. Emosher opened the attribute interface in his mind. Name, Emosher. Level 4 Hunter, Level 6 Psychokinesis. Goal: evolve into Titan Dragon. After advancing to Level 4 Hunter, his body was strengthened in all aspects. His strength increased by at least 10 times. His speed was also much faster, reaching 140 meters per second. Every level could condense a sky-killing dragon spear. Therefore, he could condense 4 sky-killing dragon spears in a short period of time. Emosher clenched his fists. The enhanced Titan Dragon Gene Enhancer was indeed powerful. Realizing this, he would sneak out of the base every night to sign in. Most of the time, he would sign in at the hospital. He would also often obtain the enhanced Titan Dragon Gene Enhancer. But occasionally, he would sign in at other places. Sign in successful. Sign in location, abandoned slaughterhouse. Sign in reward, enhanced bloodthirsty zombie slayer. Sign in successful. Sign in location, abandoned parking lot. Sign in reward, car driving skill max level. Sign in successful. Sign in location, abandoned farm. Sign in reward, summon mutated beasts. Can summon all mutated beasts below level 5 within the range of psychokinesis. Another month later, 13 hunters had appeared in the base. The strength of the entire base had obviously increased greatly, and Emosher had injected more than 20 enhanced Titan Dragon Gene Enhancers through this month's sign-in. His strength had already reached level 5 hunter. On the second day after he became a level 5 hunter, the biggest crisis since the base was built arrived. On this day, on the city wall, a soldier was wiping the barrel of his gun. He inadvertently glanced into the distance. When he saw it, he couldn't help but be stunned. He saw that in the wilderness forest in the distance, more than a dozen figures had already walked out. His heart skipped a beat. Could it be another exile? He quickly picked up the binoculars beside him and looked at those figures. When he took a look, he discovered that the dozen or so figures were almost completely unclothed. Some had broken arms and legs, and some even had their eyeballs drooping outside. Obviously, these were zombies. He immediately picked up the sniper rifle next to him, intending to shoot these zombies. However, at that moment, he saw many more zombies walking out of the forest. 10, 20, 50. Then 100, 200, 500. Many soldiers also noticed the appearance of a large number of zombies. He hurriedly reported to the captain. When the captain came out to take a look, he saw thousands of zombies walking out of the forest. The captain's heart trembled. He hastily called out, "Prepare for battle." All the soldiers quickly reloaded and aimed at those zombies. However, they soon realized that they were powerless in front of zombies. That was because a large number of zombies had also walked out of the woods. 1,000, 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, 50,000. And among these zombies, there were at least hundreds of mutated zombies. All the soldiers knew that the situation was serious. He quickly sounded the alarm. Soon, the chief of the base learned about this. His expression froze. He hurriedly ordered the hunting group to prepare for the enemy. All the hunters rushed to the city wall as soon as they received the order. When they arrived at the top of the city wall, they were all shocked. They saw that there were already more than 100,000 zombies around the entire base. These zombies had actually surrounded the entire base in a circle, and there was still a steady stream of zombies coming from the surrounding woods. Seeing this, the chief of the base looked extremely solemn. With so many zombies, the leaders of these zombies had probably planned for a long time. And it was not just zombies. Around these zombies, there were also thousands of mutated beasts. There were mutated wild boars, mutated tigers, mutated mammoths. They were like a torrent, rushing past, raising billowing smoke and dust. And most of them were mutated dogs. There were as many as tens of thousands of mutated dogs. Each of them was about 3 meters long. There was no skin on their bodies, and their muscles with blood-red mucus were directly exposed. Their 4 canine teeth were as thick as the fangs of a wild boar. And these mutated dogs were extremely agile and fast. They quickly passed through all the zombies without touching any zombies. Lu Wang's expression changed greatly when he saw this. The scene in front of him was so familiar. A few months ago, their C9 base had also experienced this scene. At first, everyone thought that they could hold on. But later, millions of zombies surrounded the city. Mutated beasts surrounded the city. Then in a short half an hour, the base was breached. More than 100,000 people died. Even if their base had hundreds of hunters, more than 5,000 zombie hunters, and more than 30 psychokinesis. In the end, the city was breached and people died. And now this C1 base only had 13 hunters, 13 psychokinesis, and more than 3,000 zombie hunters. They could not hold on at all. Thinking of this, his face could not help but show a trace of despair. However, what surprised him was these people guarding the city. Whether it was the zombie hunting group, the patrol team, or the zombie hunting team, there was no trace of despair on their faces. What was going on? Did they think that facing millions of zombies, tens of thousands of mutated zombies, and tens of thousands of mutated beasts? Could they hold on? Was it blind confidence? Or stupidity? Lu Wang could not figure it out. At this time, on the city wall, Yang Kong was setting up the defense. His voice, through the loudspeaker, spread throughout the entire city wall. All soldiers carry out the first round of shooting. All psychokinesis, carry out the second round of attack with telekinesis. If there are any that slip through the net, zombie hunters will kill them. Those 12 hunters, pay attention to protect the 12 psychokinesis. Don't let zombies and mutated beasts get close to them. His command was in perfect order. Lu Wang nodded secretly. Back then, their C9 base lacked such a commander. However, with just this, they wanted to resist the attack of millions of zombies? This was simply a fantasy story. Thinking of this, he glanced at the soldiers, zombie hunters, and psychokinesis again. In the end, he still did not find a trace of despair on their faces. What was going on? Of course, he did not know that there was a mysterious powerhouse hidden in the base. He thought that his strength as a level 2 hunter was invincible in the base. But everyone knew that he was wrong. Ridiculously wrong. The strength of the mysterious powerhouse was far beyond a level 2 hunter. The mysterious powerhouse had saved the base from danger many times. This time he would definitely not stand by and watch. It was just that the mysterious powerhouse was unwilling to show himself. So now people had a tacit understanding and did not mention the mysterious powerhouse. Therefore, Lu Wang had been in the base for 2 months. But he did not know that there was such a terrifying powerhouse hidden in the base. In fact, they were right. Of course, Immortal would not stand by and do nothing. He saved the base many times, but not all for these people. Life in the base was so comfortable. If the base was gone, he would lose a place to sleep and check in peacefully. Therefore, at this time, Immortal in the zombie farm was already wearing his color-changing camouflage uniform. Chapter 38. The cloudless sky was so blue that it made people feel happy. However, at this moment, in Base C1 no one could feel happy, because opposite the blue sky was the million zombies under the sky. Millions of zombies surrounded the city. Tens of thousands of mutated beasts attacked. Smoke and dust billowed around the entire base. It covered the sky and shook the earth. In the distance, a female zombie in a pleated skirt was standing on a huge rock. She raised her head and stuck out her chest. Her figure was straight, like a female general. If one only looked at her front, she was definitely a beauty. However, there was a wrinkled bloody hole behind her neck. One could see directly into her head from the back of her neck. Her gaze swept across the 10-meter-tall city wall. At a certain moment, she opened her mouth. Roar! As she roared, one could see directly behind her from her mouth. The million zombies heard this roar. Immediately they also roared. Hiss! Roar! Roar! The roar of a million zombies. The earth shook and the green mountains trembled. The next moment, a million zombies ran towards the city wall at the same time. Smoke and dust billowed. It was like a tsunami pouncing on the shore. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Shio-shio-shio. On the city wall, all weapons fired at the same time. Bullets and cannonballs splashed towards these zombies. The zombies were blown away, shot through, and torn into pieces. In just a moment, thousands of zombies fell. However, there were too many zombies. The ones at the front fell, but the ones behind them rolled in. More than 30 minutes later, around the city wall, more than 100,000 zombies had already fallen. However, after 30 minutes, the ammunition on the city wall was almost exhausted. The zombies began to approach. At this moment, the 12 psychokinesis began to work. More than 100 throwing knives quickly passed through the city wall within 100 meters. The zombies' heads were constantly pierced through. At this moment, those 3-meter-long mutated dogs appeared. They were agile and could dodge the throwing knives. And the mutated wild boars behind them were even more powerful. 1 or 2 throwing knives couldn't pierce their hard skin at all. Ding ding ding. Only a string of flame flowers was left on their bodies. These mutated beasts rushed to the foot of the city wall in almost 10 seconds. At this moment, the 3,000 hunting groups. They all jumped down from the city wall and fought with the mutated dogs. In the distance, the sexy female zombie was waiting for this moment. She let out another roar from her throat. All the mutant dogs, mutant wild boars, and mutant ferocious tigers charged towards the 3,000 hunters. Tens of thousands of mutated beasts attacked the 3,000 hunters. The hunters immediately fell into a disadvantageous position and retreated. There were still 13 hunters on the city wall. However, they had to protect the psychokinesis, so naturally, they couldn't go down and fight. At this moment, Lu Wang's eyes were filled with anger. He jumped down. Half a year ago, zombies and mutant beasts had attacked Base C9 in the same way. Now, how could he just watch the previous tragedy happen again? A 5-meter-long mutated wild boar roared and pounced at him. He pulled out the 2 sabers from his waist with both hands. He shouted, "Die." He suddenly jumped up and slashed the neck of the wild boar with the dagger in his right hand. Gee! The mutant wild boar that wasn't even afraid of rockets had a bloody wound on its neck. Blood spurted out. He kicked another mutated tiger that was pouncing at him, and kicked it more than 20 meters away. He knocked over more than 10 mutated dogs. In just a moment, he had killed dozens of mutated beasts. Everyone on the city wall was surprised. Lu Wang's combat power was really strong. With his addition, the situation suddenly eased a lot. But it was just a relief. And the beautiful female zombie in the pleated skirt also discovered the strength of this human. She immediately pointed at this human and roared. Roar! In the next moment, the thousands of mutated zombies attacked Lu Wang together. Lu Wang saw this and moved his mind. His entire right arm suddenly changed. His right arm continued to extend, extending to a length of 200 meters. His entire right arm seemed to have become a 200-meter-long whip. The long whip was made up of hundreds of sharp triangular blades. His long whip lashed out violently. It drew a huge circle with a radius of 200 meters. Within this circle, all the zombies, mutated beasts, and mutated zombies that couldn't dodge in time were cut in half. On the ground, a blood-red circle with a radius of 200 meters appeared with him as the center. Within this blood-red circle, there were thousands of zombies, over 100 mutated zombies, and over 100 mutated beasts lying on the ground. With one move, so many zombies and mutated beasts were cut in half. Everyone on the city wall was surprised when they saw this scene. This was Lu Wang's genetic martial art. And the zombie hunters who were fighting were all envious when they saw this scene. Genetic martial art was the most fundamental difference between a hunter and a zombie hunter. After becoming a hunter, they would have a genetic martial art. Their combat power would greatly increase. Not only would their damage increase, but their range of damage would also be greatly increased. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that a hunter could easily deal with 1,000 zombie hunters. However, although those zombies were cut in half, they didn't die. As long as their heads weren't heavily injured, even if they only had one head left, they could still continue to live. That sexy female zombie saw this and let out a roar from her throat. Hence, the number of zombies surrounding Lu Wang increased. At the same time, over 100 mutated giant elephants rushed towards the city gate. These mutated giant elephants were all over 20 meters long and 7 to 8 meters tall. As they ran, the earth trembled. Rumble, rumble. Although these mutated giant elephants were huge, their speed wasn't slow at all. They could actually reach a speed of 50 meters per second. One of the zombie hunters couldn't dodge in time, and was sent flying over 30 meters. The other corpse hunter was directly trampled into a pile of meat. On the city wall, the leader of the zombie hunters, Yang Kong, saw this. He gritted his teeth and jumped down. The giant sword in his hand suddenly slashed down. Gotcha! A mutated giant elephant's head was actually split in half. However, over 100 mutated giant elephants came rumbling from behind. Yang Kong could only take out his genetic martial art. His right arm turned into a blood-red spear. He suddenly stabbed forward. The spear was like a dragon. The spear actually grew to 100 meters in an instant. Puff, 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 puff. As long as it was in the spear's path, regardless of whether it was a mutated zombie or a mutated beast, they were all pierced through. Yang Kang's spear shook slightly. Ka ka ka. Over 100 sharp blades appeared on the body of the spear. Those zombies and mutated beasts that were pierced through were instantly torn into pieces by the blades. Yang Kong waved his spear continuously. Those mutated giant elephants were also killed one after another. A hunter's genetic martial art was as strong as Han's, as terrifying as Han's. However, genetic martial arts were indeed powerful. However, the exhaustion on the body was extremely high. Yang Kong and Lu Wang's fighting style could at most last for over 10 minutes. After more than 10 minutes, they would be exhausted. This was also the reason why Immortal didn't use genetic martial arts much later on. Genetic martial arts were only used as a trump card. It couldn't be used as a conventional weapon. Mutated beasts and zombies were still attacking endlessly. They surrounded Yang Kong and Lu Wang. At the same time, there were 5 giant elephants. They actually bypassed Yang Kong and Lu Wang and rushed towards the city gate. Their 2-meter-thick tusks relied on the forward momentum of 50 meters per second and fiercely crashed into the city gate. Rumble. Amidst the loud noise, the metal city gate that was over 30 centimeters thick shook violently. Rumble. The bricks beside the city gate exploded one after another. Seeing this, Yang Kong was shocked. If the city gate was broken, then everything would be over. Thinking of this, he hurriedly shouted, "All hunters attack!" Hence, all the hunters jumped down from the city and attacked those giant elephants. They used their genetic martial arts to kill these 5 giant elephants. However, they were quickly surrounded by other mutated beasts and zombies, unable to leave. At this time, another 5 mutated giant elephants bypassed all the hunters and hunters. For the 3rd time, they crashed into the city gate. Rumble. The city wall trembled. Everyone was stunned. The next moment, rumble. The city gate collapsed. Seeing this, the 5 giant elephants immediately stretched out their blood-red trunks and howled towards the sky. Ayo. After that, they ran towards the city gate. Chapter 39. The city gate was broken. When millions of zombies were surrounding the city gate was broken through. What did this mean? Lu Wang, who was in the middle of the battle, heard this loud sound. He suddenly turned his head. When he saw that the city gate was broken through, a strong sense of despair surged in his heart. Their previous C9 base did not have a city wall, only a wall. 5 months ago, mutated zombies and mutated beasts swarmed forward. Their wall could not stop them at all, and was broken through in minutes. This C1 base had a city wall. He thought that it could last for dozens of minutes. However, he did not expect that the city gate would be broken through in such a short period of time. He could imagine that he would see thousands of zombies and mutated beasts pouring into the base. Thousands of people would die tragically. The scene of C9 base 5 months ago would happen again in C1 base. However, when Lu Wang's gaze swept past Yang Kong, he realized that there was still no despair on Yang Kang's face. Not far away, everyone in the hunting group still did not have any despair on their faces. Even the ordinary soldiers on the city wall did not have any despair on their faces. What was going on? The city had been broken through, but they were not worried at all? Did they not know what they would face next? Or did they already have the determination to die, so they did not despair and only fought? Lu Wang really could not figure it out. In fact, the others were also a little nervous at this moment. Although they knew that there was a mysterious expert behind them, but seeing that the city gate had been broken through, they could not help but feel a little flustered. And although they knew that the mysterious expert was very strong, but millions of zombies, tens of thousands of mutated beasts, and tens of thousands of mutated zombies attacked the city together. Could the mysterious expert block them? However, they were only worried. They were still far from despair. At this moment, the 5 giant elephants had knocked down the city gate. They stretched their trunks and howled at the sky. Ayo. Then they all moved together. They took a step forward and ran towards the city wall. Rumble. Rumble. They were like 5 high-speed road rollers. They raised smoke and dust along the way. They instantly ran into the city gate. Everyone's heart sank. However, in the next moment, bang! Accompanied by a loud sound, the 5 giant elephants that had just run into the city gate suddenly shot out. It was backward. Instead of flying backwards, they were like 5 arrows that had been shot. They stuck close to the ground and shot out of the city wall in a radial shape. All the zombies, and mutant beasts along the way. They were all sent flying in all directions by the 5 giant elephants. Even some mutated zombies were sent flying more than 20 meters high. These 5 giant elephants were shot a full 100 meters away. Looking from the top of the city, among the densely packed zombies, mutant beasts and mutant zombies, the 5 giant elephants created 5 bloody paths that were more than 30 meters wide and 100 meters long. They were like the 5 huge ribs of a huge fan. Everyone's heart, which had just calmed down, rejoiced. They all looked at the city gate excitedly. Their eyes flashed with excitement. A mysterious expert. It had finally appeared. In the monitoring room, the chief of the base saw this scene through the surveillance screen. His eyes narrowed. His eyes were fixed on the city gate. Yang Kong, who was fighting, saw the scene. His eyes were filled with adoration. When Lu Wang saw this, his eyes were filled with shock. He could also kick a mutated giant elephant away with one kick. But at most, he could only kick a giant elephant 20 to 30 meters away. Now 5 giant elephants were sent flying 100 meters away with one move. Could it be that there was an even stronger expert in the city? An expert stronger than him, a level 2 hunter? Impossible. When he came to the city 2 months ago, they didn't even have a hunter. How could such a powerful existence suddenly appear? Thinking of this, his eyes were fixed on the city gate. Outside the city wall, on a huge rock in the distance, the female zombie in the pleated skirt flashed back slightly. Bang! A mutated zombie fell from the sky. It smashed into the place where she was just standing. Its head was smashed into pieces. A trace of surprise appeared in the female zombie's gray-white eyes. How could there be such a powerful human? She couldn't help but look at the city gate. In the next moment, she saw a figure slowly walking out from the city gate. She wanted to see this figure clearly, but this figure seemed to have merged with the city wall behind him. His skin color was the same color as the city wall. His clothes were the same color as the city wall. It was impossible to see clearly. At the same time, the soldiers, hunters, and psychokinesis near the city wall wanted to see the mysterious expert clearly. However, the mysterious expert seemed to have some ability similar to a chameleon. Moreover, around the mysterious expert, pieces of gravel began to float quickly. They flew around him at an extremely fast speed. His face couldn't be seen clearly at all. Only a blurry figure could be seen through the flying stones. However, even this blurry figure gradually couldn't be seen clearly, because there were more and more gravel around the figure. Gravel as small as a walnut, stones as large as dozens of kilograms. They all floated up and spun around him rapidly. A moment later, a whirlwind sandstorm with a radius of about 600 meters was formed. And this whirlwind sandstorm was even more violent than an ordinary sandstorm. A normal sandstorm would blow up sand and soil. However, this whirlwind and sandstorm was blowing up rocks. There were even large stones of 50 to 60 kilograms. A radius of 600 meters, which was within a diameter of 1,200 meters. All the zombies were almost instantly torn to shreds by this whirlwind sandstorm. And outside the sandstorm, the zombies who had just touched the edge of the sandstorm were also torn to pieces. It could be clearly seen that a mutant dog had just pounced to the edge of the sandstorm. The front half of its body disappeared instantly. The back half of its body was thrown hundreds of meters away by the huge force. On the distant boulder, the female zombie in the pleated skirt was surprised when she saw this. Her grayish-white eyes flashed. Then she let out a roar. Suddenly, thousands of zombies, mutated zombies, and mutated beasts. They all rushed towards the sandstorm together. However, almost all the zombies, and mutated beasts were instantly torn to pieces by the rapidly spinning stones as soon as they rushed in. They turned into blood and splashed out. Except for the mutated mammoths and mutated wild boars with extremely strong defense, no zombies or mutated beasts could come out intact. Even the mutated mammoths and mutated wild boars were covered in wounds and on the verge of death after coming out. And the whirlwind sandstorm had already turned blood-red after killing thousands of zombies and mutated beasts. A blood-red mutated sandstorm with a diameter of 1,200 meters. It spun under the city wall. Those more than 100 throwing knives of psychokinesis were involuntarily swept into the blood-red sandstorm. They subconsciously wanted to take it back. But their telekinesis was simply unable to compete with the powerful telekinesis in the blood-red sandstorm. Their telekinesis was like a lonely lamp, and that huge telekinesis was like a brilliant sun. Wherever the blood-red sandstorm passed, zombies, mutated beasts, and mutated zombies were all cleaned up. On the ground, there were broken limbs and broken bodies all over. Blood flowed like a river. A real river of blood flowed like a river. The blood mixed with the mud, forming a mud that looked like a mudslide. However, this mud was blood-red. On the city wall, those psychokinesis saw this scene and were extremely shocked. They all felt ashamed of their inferiority. They were also using telekinesis. Their throwing knives, compared to the whirlwind sandstorm of the mysterious strong man, were completely garbage. And Lu Wang was in a state of confusion. He couldn't come back to his senses for a long time. Chapter 40. All the psychokinesis felt ashamed of their inferiority when they saw this bloody sandstorm. Compared to the mysterious powerhouse, they were simply a bunch of trash. It wasn't what others thought, but what they thought. And all the zombie hunters and all the ordinary soldiers saw this bloody sandstorm. They were all dumbfounded. A soldier saw this scene and forgot to shoot. A zombie hunter saw this scene and forgot to pull out the short knife that had just pierced into the zombie's mouth. They all knew that the mysterious powerhouse was very powerful. He could destroy 40 buildings in an entire neighborhood with one move. But today, they realized that their information was outdated. The mysterious powerhouse had reached the point where he could control sandstorms. The power to control nature. This was no longer something that ordinary people could do. It was God. In their knowledge, only God had the power to control nature. It wasn't just the two of them. All the soldiers and zombie hunters were as shocked as them. Their thoughts were the same as theirs. The most shocked person was none other than Lu Wang. This human's psychokinesis was actually so powerful. This was no longer a human, but a god. He originally thought that he was already very powerful as a level 2 hunter. Even some level 2 or even level 3 psychokinesis were no match for him. But now he was 100% sure. If he were to become enemies with this human, he would be torn to pieces in minutes. At the same time, what made him even more incredulous was that this person was both a hunter and a psychokinesis. He sent the 5 mutant elephants flying 100 meters with one move. This obviously couldn't be psychokinesis, because there was no psychokinesis whose psychokinesis could send a few tons of elephants flying with their psychokinesis. Only a hunter who was stronger than him could do it. And now, the ability of this whirlwind sandstorm was obviously psychokinesis. How was this possible? After the evolution agent was injected, there were 3 situations. Either the enhancement failed, and they continued to be ordinary people, or they became a zombie hunter. And the strongest one was psychokinesis. He had never heard of someone who became a zombie hunter, and also a psychokinesis. Psychokinesis was strong, but their bodies were as weak as ordinary people. If the enemy got close, it was basically a dead end. And now, this person's psychokinesis was stronger than any psychokinesis he had ever seen. His body was even stronger than a level 2 hunters. How much did the heavens favor him? Could this guy be God's illegitimate child? At this moment, Immortal was carrying the bloody sandstorm with him. It continued to sweep towards those zombies. Wherever the sandstorm passed, not even a blade of grass grew. On a huge rock in the distance, the female zombie in the pleated skirt saw this scene, and her heart sank. He already had thoughts of retreating. With such a powerful existence, coming here to attack the city was simply sending their heads to their deaths. However, when he thought of the orders the leader had given him before he left, he felt that it was a bit too late. Her heart couldn't help but tremble. If you fail, I will nail you to the cliff. Let those mutant giant eagles eat your flesh. Who told you to watch yourself being eaten up bit by bit? Thinking of this, she made up her mind. No matter what, they had to take down this base today. But when she saw the bloody sandstorm, she was in a dilemma. If this continued, the 1 million zombies she brought wouldn't be enough to be blown away by the bloody sandstorm. As long as it scraped around the city wall, all the 1 million zombies would be wiped out. The only way now was to let the other zombies attract the powerful human's attention. Then, she would send a small group of mutant zombies and mutant beasts to sneak in through the city gate. As long as a zombie entered the city, it would cause a large number of infections. At that time, it wouldn't be difficult to break into the city. Thinking of this, she let out a series of roars. Of course, to humans, these were just angry roars. But in fact, she was giving orders to those zombies. Those zombies and mutant beasts heard this order. One by one, they immediately moved towards the city gate. At the same time, Yang Kong also returned to the city gate to defend. The mysterious powerhouse dealt with a large number of zombies and mutant beasts. And the rest of them had to kill the zombies and mutant beasts that escaped the net and defend the city gate. At the same time, he shouted to the top. Sniper, do you see the zombie on the huge rock? On the city wall, the sniper was in position. Soon, the scope covered the female zombie. This zombie was very beautiful, so beautiful that it made people's hearts beat. However, he only paused for a moment. Then he pulled the trigger. Bang! There was a loud noise. The bullet instantly crossed a distance of more than 800 meters. It flew towards the female zombie's head. However, in the next moment, the sniper's expression changed. Through the scope, he clearly saw that the female zombie's head suddenly tilted. Then, she let out an angry roar in his direction. Then, she continued to stand on the huge rock in command. In other words, she actually dodged the bullet. The sniper felt that it was incredible. His Adam's apple moved. He didn't believe it. The bullet was loaded. Aimed. Shoot. The second bullet flew towards the female zombie again. The female zombie tilted her head slightly again. She easily dodged the bullet. Damn it. The sniper cursed. Several soldiers next to him were puzzled. What's going on? You missed twice in a row? This isn't like you. Can't you move after seeing the female zombie? The sniper glared at the soldier next to him and cursed. She can King dodge bullets. The soldiers heard this and were all shocked. A zombie that could dodge bullets. How terrifyingly fast must it be? Under the city wall, Yang Kong roared. Sniper? The sniper shouted. She can dodge bullets. Yang Kong heard this and his heart skipped a beat. It was the first time he heard of a zombie that could dodge bullets. Lu Wang's face was solemn. He shouted. It was this female zombie that led people to attack our base. More than a dozen hunters in our base died in her hands. In his words, there was hatred and fear. This female zombie was the strongest zombie he had ever seen. Even he was far from being her opponent. The female zombie was shot twice in a row by an ordinary human sniper. Although it didn't hurt her, it made her angry. She felt offended. A mere human was nothing more than a worm in her eyes. He actually dared to offend her. Courting death. Thinking of this, she glanced at the bloody sandstorm that was more than 2,000 meters away from the city gate. The sandstorm spun away into the distance. It was obvious that it wanted to circle the city and clear all the zombies. She could use this opportunity to kill her way into the city gate. However, just in case, she waited for a while. He waited until the bloody sandstorm was about 5 kilometers away, before he leaped into the air. In an instant, she was 100 meters away. Toward the city wall. On the city wall, all the soldiers were shocked when they saw the female zombie's terrifying speed. They quickly raised their guns and fired. However, the female zombie's speed was too fast. Their bullets couldn't catch up with her. When Yang Kong and Lu Wang saw the female zombie rushing over, they quickly blocked in front of her. The genetic weapons on their right arms attacked the female zombie at almost the same time. However, the female zombie's figure flashed. She instantly dodged the two genetic weapons. She swept past the two and went straight to the city gate. Her goal was to attack the city. She wanted to take advantage of the time when the powerful warrior was clearing the zombies to attack. Therefore, she didn't have time to care about Yang Kong and Lu Wang. Seeing that the female zombie was less than 200 meters away from the city gate, everyone's eyes flashed with panic. They didn't doubt that when the powerful warrior finished clearing the 1 million zombies, he could easily kill the female zombie. However, before the powerful warrior returned, how many people would the female zombie kill if she rushed into the city? With her strength, killing 1,000 people in a short time was no problem. Even killing 10,000 people was no problem. What was more terrifying was if she didn't kill people but infected people. Then the number would increase greatly. Just as everyone was panicking, whoosh, a black light streaked across the sky. It directly attacked the female zombie. Chapter 41. The female zombie was only 200 meters away from the city gate. With her speed, she only needed 2 steps to rush into the city gate. Some people with good eyesight could even see the ferocious expression on the female zombie's face. However, at this moment, whoosh, a black stream of light suddenly flew out from the bloody sandstorm that was gradually disappearing into the distance. It instantly crossed the sky. It crossed 5 kilometers. Puff. It directly pierced through the female zombie's head. The female zombie was sent flying more than 10 meters by the huge force. Then she was directly nailed to the ground. Her grayish-white eyes were filled with terror and disbelief. She could even dodge bullets. How could she suddenly be stabbed to death by a javelin? At this moment, everyone looked at the female zombie. She was obviously not breathing at all. Her head was nailed to the ground by a pitch-black javelin. More than half of the javelin was buried in the ground. Only about a meter long was left outside. Hiss! The captain of the zombie hunters in Area A on the city wall couldn't help but gasp. Hiss! The effeminate Vice-Captain Guojutao also sucked in a breath of cold air. When everyone saw this scene, they all sucked in a breath of cold air. Even a sniper's bullet couldn't do anything to the female zombie. But she was instantly killed by a black javelin shot out from the bloody sandstorm. One could imagine how shocked they were. Below the city wall, the short-haired woman kicked a zombie away. Looking back, she saw the scene. In shock, she couldn't help but say, "What the F***?" Then looking at the bloody sandstorm that was gradually fading away, she gave a thumbs up. Mysterious strong man, he's awesome. At this moment, no one was as shocked as Lu Wang. He had seen this female zombie fight before. He knew how strong this female zombie was. Their base is 3 level 3 hunters, and more than 10 psychokinesis joined forces to besiege this female zombie. But they were killed by this female zombie in one move. Their base, through long-term research, divided mutated zombies into 2 major levels. Mutated zombies and strong mutated zombies. Mutated zombies, level 1 to 10, corresponded to the hunters level 1 to 10. Strong mutated zombies, level 1 to 10, corresponded to the hunters level 1 to 10. There was a huge difference between each level of a hunter's strength. A level 2 hunter could easily crush 100 level 1 hunters. Similarly, the strength gap between strong mutated zombies was also huge. And this female zombie had already reached the strength of a level 4 strong mutant zombie. That was equivalent to a level 4 hunter. Therefore, they could easily crush any hunters and psychokinesis below level 3 in their base. But now, he had been killed by a javelin, that bloody sandstorm that had been casually thrown over 5,000 meters. Moreover, bloody sandstorm was cleaning up the zombies. It was obvious that it had only thrown a javelin in passing. Then he would be able to cross 5,000 meters and kill the female zombie. How strong was the person in the sandstorm? He must be at least a level 5 hunter, right? Hiss! Thinking of this, he sucked in a breath of cold air. A level 5 hunter was a powerful existence that he had never seen before. Before today, he didn't even think that there was a level 5 hunter in the world. This was because Base C9 was one of the first bases to develop the X2 evolution agent. Not a single level 4 hunter had appeared in their base. Naturally, it was impossible for other bases to have a level 5 hunter. But now, the truth was right in front of him. He had no choice but to believe it. Actually, he didn't know that Immortal was only a level 4 hunter. The reason why he could kill a level 5 strong mutant zombie was because of the Sky Splitter Dragon Spear. How could something that was associated with the word Sky Splitter be ordinary? How could something that was associated with the word dragon be ordinary? The dragon spear had a strong restraining effect on zombies. In addition, the dragon spear's flying speed was extremely fast. The female zombie couldn't dodge it at all. That was why she was instantly killed. At the same time, what shocked everyone was the accuracy of this javelin. Crossing 5 kilometers, it was actually able to hit the head of the female zombie, who was running at a speed of 100 meters per second. Even a sniper might not be able to do that. But the mysterious powerhouse actually did it. How many handguns did he shoot to be able to train such accuracy? Actually, they didn't know that in the bloody sandstorm, Immortal had already condensed a second Sky Splitter Dragon Spear in his hand. He originally thought that if the first one didn't hit, he would throw another one. If the second one didn't hit, he would throw the third one. If it really didn't work, he would return to kill the female zombie. He didn't expect to hit the target with one shot. Luck! Putting away the Sky Splitter Dragon Spear in his hand, he continued to whip the bloody sandstorm and swept forward. In the place where the bloody sandstorm passed, only a 1,200 meters wide bloody mud area was left on the ground. Half an hour later, the bloody sandstorm circled around the city wall and swept around. All the zombies and mutant beasts had been cleaned up. There was a layer of bloody mist floating around the entire base. The entire base was filled with the smell of blood. Everyone watched as the blood-colored sandstorm slowly disappeared. Their gazes were fixed on the center of the sandstorm. They were looking forward to seeing the mysterious powerhouse. This wasn't the first time the mysterious powerhouse had saved them. They wanted to thank the mysterious powerhouse in person. However, when the bloody sandstorm completely disappeared, the thousands of bloody stones had turned into bloody mud and fell from the sky. They didn't see the figure of the mysterious powerhouse at all. It turned out that Immortal had been more than 10 seconds before. He had already jumped out of the bloody sandstorm. He had crossed the part of the city wall that was more loosely guarded. At this time, everyone's attention was on the bloody sandstorm, so naturally, no one noticed him. Everyone was a little disappointed that they didn't see the mysterious powerhouse. After being stunned for a moment, Yang Kong slowly bent down. He faced the place where the bloody sandstorm disappeared. He bowed deeply. He said loudly, "Thank you." This was a voice that came from the bottom of his heart. Other than Lu Wang, everyone else bowed deeply when they heard this. This was the third time the mysterious powerhouse had saved the base. He had saved all of their lives. If it weren't for the mysterious powerhouse, the base would have probably ceased to exist 5 years ago, or even 7 or 8 years ago. And in the past 10 years, the mysterious powerhouse had saved them many times, but he had never asked for anything from them. The mysterious powerhouse was worthy of being called great. They had no way of repaying this kindness. They couldn't even say thank you in person. They could only silently remember this kindness. Remember it for life. Lu Wang's eyes reddened when he saw this. If their C9 base had such a powerful existence back then, the wall wouldn't have been breached and more than 100,000 people would have died. At the same time, hope rose in his eyes. Then with a plop, he knelt on the ground. He said loudly, "Mysterious powerhouse, please help me, help the remaining 1,000 people in our base. They have been trapped in the underground shelter for 5 months. The ground above the shelter is full of mutated zombies and mutated beasts. Please come with me and bring them over. I beg you." After saying that, he kowtowed heavily in the direction where the bloody sandstorm disappeared. Bang! As a level 2 hunter, his physical strength was far stronger than ordinary people. This kowtow was so loud. The tremor caused some dust to rise from the ground near his head. However, after a long time, the blood-red sandstorm was silent. Chapter 42. At this time, Immortal was sticking close to the ground and quickly running towards the wall of the second line of defense. His body and clothes had turned into the same green color as the wheat seedlings on the ground. If the people on the wall didn't look carefully, they wouldn't notice him at all. What's more, their attention was focused outside the wall. He certainly heard Lu Wang's words. But he didn't plan to help Lu Wang. Base C9 was more than 500 kilometers away. How many zombies and mutant beasts were there? And after Base C9 was breached, there would be zombies and mutant beasts everywhere. With the base behind him, even if he encountered more powerful mutant zombies and mutant beasts, he still had a way out. But if he went there, he wouldn't be able to get help. Although he was strong, he wasn't strong enough to walk freely in the wilderness. He wasn't a saint, so he naturally wouldn't go so far and take such a big risk to save people. It's still the same sentence in the apocalypse. Survival was the way to go. Lu Wang saw that there was no response for a long time, and his eyes were a little complicated. He looked up and asked Yang Kong next to him, "The mysterious strong man you mentioned, will he go?" Yang Kong shook his head. "I don't know." Lu Wang was silent for a moment and asked again, "Will you go?" Yang Kong nodded. "Since the base chief promised you, and you helped us develop the X2 virus evolution agent, I think the chief will definitely send someone to go with you." Lu Wang's eyes showed a glimmer of hope, but when he looked at the place where the sandstorm disappeared, he couldn't help but feel a little regretful. If the mysterious strong man could go with them, they would definitely be able to save more than 1,000 people. At this time, in the base's main monitoring room, the base chief saw that all the zombies were cleared and finally breathed a sigh of relief. Phew, He leaned back in the chair tiredly. Chief, thanks to the mysterious strong man, he saved the base again. This isn't the first time. With him, our base won't be breached. A staff officer next to him said. The base chief nodded. Then he lit a cigarette and took a deep breath. The tiredness on his face gradually dissipated, and a kind smile appeared on his face again. He said, "It's a pity that I can't thank him in person." The staff officer nodded. Everyone in the base wants to thank him in person. I just don't know why he has been hiding his identity. The bureau chief said, such a mysterious expert who only gives and doesn't ask for anything. We must thank him properly. How about this? Get someone to come up with a plan and launch a search for the mysterious powerhouse, and thank the mysterious powerhouse campaign. We must hold a grand ceremony to thank the mysterious expert. He saved the base so many times, but he didn't get anything in return. This time, we have to change the way we thank him. It's no longer spoken, nor is it in my heart. Instead, I'll let him reap the benefits. The staff officer nodded again, but then shook his head. Chief, it's only right to thank him. However, he had been hiding his identity. Perhaps he didn't want to be disturbed. In the past, we spontaneously organized many activities to search for mysterious powerhouses, but in the end, we found nothing. If we do that, wouldn't it be bad? The bureau chief took a puff of his cigarette and exhaled a cloud of smoke. He said, "You're right. However, he should be able to understand our feelings. And this time I'll personally come out and publicly invite him to come out. As long as he's willing, I can even give him the position of the base chief." The staff officer was stunned. "Chief, you?" The base chief smiled bitterly, shook his head and said, "I'm old. It's time for me to retire. This defense of the city showed me how powerless I am in such a large-scale battle. Therefore, us old guys have to give up our positions. Letting more capable people take over is good for everyone in our base." The staff officer's eyes flickered. He felt a little heartache and a little admiration. "Chief, you're really great." The base chief laughed. "You've learned how to flatter?" The staff officer shook his head. "It's not flattery. It's from the bottom of my heart." The bureau chief waved his hand and said, "Oh right, the surveillance footage just now might have captured the mysterious powerhouse. Try to send someone to look through all the surveillance footage." The staff officer's eyes lit up. "That's a good idea. Chief, I'll get someone to do it now." An hour later, the staff officer reported in disappointment. "Chief, we've already looked through all the surveillance footage by the city wall 3 times. We can only find an afterimage." As he spoke, he showed the footage. On the screen, only an afterimage could be seen flashing past the camera. Only a blur could be seen. Even the outline of the figure couldn't be seen. The bureau chief also shook his head in disappointment. This footage was meaningless. "Okay, go and get someone to plan the event." The staff officer nodded. "Yes." He turned and left. The bureau chief stared at the sky outside the window. He muttered, "Who the hell are you? I'm old. It's time for me to retire. If there's anyone in the base who can replace me, it's only you. Please show yourself for the 100,000 people in the base." At the same time, outside the base, at the top of a poplar tree in the distance, a huge strange bird was squatting on a branch. It didn't have a single feather on its body. Its head was like an owl's, but the wings on its back were like those of a bat. After everything quieted down, it flapped its wings, spread its 4-meter-wide wings, and flew far away. More than 3 hours later, this mutant owl came to a mountain village. The mountain village looked very quiet and peaceful. But the mutant owl knew how many powerful zombies there were here. This mutant owl landed in a courtyard in the middle of the village. Then, it slowly jumped into a house from the courtyard. In the house, a zombie was staring at the distant sky. This zombie had 3 deep claw marks on its face that were so deep that the bones could be seen. These 3 claw marks started from its left eye and extended diagonally down to the right corner of its mouth. Its nose had long disappeared. More than half of the flesh on its mouth had been peeled off by the claw marks. It looked very ferocious. The mutant owl's mouth let out a roar that only zombies could understand. "Leader, we failed." This leader was a level 7 strong mutant zombie. His strength was equivalent to a level 7 hunter. He let out a terrifying roar from his throat. How could we fail? That was 1 million zombies. Even if it was him, it would take 2 to 3 months to mobilize 1 million zombies. The mutant owl's blood-red eyes let out a roar. That mysterious powerhouse. Another mysterious powerhouse. There was a trace of anger in the leader's grayish-white eyes. The owl hissed. Leader, in my opinion, that human powerhouse is probably a level 6 hunter. Only you can kill him personally. The leader frowned slightly. If he's just a level 6 hunter, of course I can. But he's still psychokinesis, which is a little troublesome. The owl hissed. Leader, what should we do? Just watch this human get stronger and stronger? The zombie leader said. Soon, I will be able to advance to level 8. At that time, my strength will be more than 100 times stronger. At that time, it will be the death of this human. At this point he roared towards the sky. Roar. Hearing this, the mutant owl also let out a hoarse roar. Hiss. Chapter 43. 43 System Upgrade in the Base. Emosher sneaked back to the zombie farm. With his strength, Old Lee and Happy naturally couldn't find out that he sneaked out. He returned to his room and took off his color-changing camouflage uniform. As soon as he turned around, he threw himself on the bed. His head was swollen. He felt dizzy. For half an hour he used his telekinesis at a high intensity. His telekinesis had been overdrawn. Telekinesis was not like physical strength. When physical strength was exhausted, there was a recovery potion. When telekinesis was exhausted, there was no potion to recover it. And when physical strength was exhausted, even if there was no recovery potion, it could be recovered with a sleep. But when telekinesis was exhausted, it would take a long time to slowly recover. He smiled bitterly, but he was still very satisfied with his current strength. One person's strength, millions of corpses. Who else in this world could do it? And he hadn't used his full strength yet. But he didn't relax because of this. The appearance of the beautiful zombie made him vigilant. The strength of the beautiful zombie was obviously much stronger than ordinary mutated zombies. Then it was very likely that there were even more powerful mutated zombies. So he still had to continue to sign in and become stronger. Facing those mutated zombies, he didn't just have to be able to kill them. He had to crush them. Just as he was thinking of this, the system's voice suddenly sounded in his mind. The system can be upgraded. Do you want to upgrade now? Emosher was happy when he heard this. What he wanted came true. It seemed that the last time the system was upgraded after he killed a large number of zombies. This time it was still the same. He immediately said without hesitation. Upgrade. Upgrade requires 12 hours. During the upgrade, you can't sign in. The system reminded. Then the upgrade began. 12 hours later, it was around 3 o'clock in the night. The system's voice sounded again. However, Emosher had already calculated the time when the upgrade would be completed. He was just waiting for this moment. Upgrade successful. Reward obtained. 5 brain cell recovery potions. Reward obtained. 10 enhanced Titan Dragon gene enhancers. Reward obtained. 10 recovery potions. Reward obtained. 5 brain cell enhancers. Reward obtained. 1,000 bloodthirsty corpse slaying flying knives. When Emosher saw these rewards, the corners of his mouth couldn't help but smile again. These were all things that he needed the most right now. With a thought, he took out a brain cell recovery potion from his backpack. The brain cell recovery drug was dark red in color, like the color of wine. He took it orally. He opened his mouth and swallowed it. The next moment, he felt that the swelling pain in his head was quickly disappearing. In just 5 minutes, he felt refreshed. He was overjoyed. The system's reward this time could be considered a kind one. He put away the remaining 4 brain cell recovery serums. Then, he injected the enhanced Titan Dragon gene enhancer and brain cell enhancer into his brain. At that moment, he felt that both his telekinesis and his physical strength had become much stronger. Given his strength, he should be able to make a breakthrough soon. After using a large amount of telekinesis this time, his telekinesis had increased a lot. Now he had been injected with 5 doses of brain cell enhancers. His telekinesis had increased by a lot. This filled him with confidence. At the same time, the system's voice sounded again. The content of this upgrade is as follows. 1. System Backpack Expansion. Each slot in the system backpack can store up to 10 items of the same type. 2. Sign and Reward Designated System. Killing zombies can obtain evolution points. Evolution points can be used to exchange for designated rewards. Note: when designating rewards, the location can be ignored. You can only specify rewards that have appeared in the system before. 3. Event Reward Mechanism. After doing a specific event, you can receive the relevant reward. The content of the upgrade was a bit too much. For Immortal, who was afraid of trouble, it seemed to be a bit of a headache. After reading it a few times, he more or less understood the system's meaning. Backpack expansion was needless to say. After the upgrade, each slot could store up to 10 items of the same type. At most, it could store up to 1,000 items. This was better than his personal storage. Designated Sign and Reward, which meant that as long as he killed zombies, he would obtain evolution points. He could use these evolution points to exchange for designated rewards. He could obtain whatever reward he wanted. This was very practical. Event Reward Mechanism, which meant that he could obtain relevant rewards for doing things. This was very easy to understand. For example, after killing zombies, he could obtain zombie-related rewards. It was 3 o'clock at night. Immortal quietly left the zombie farm and crossed the base's wall. He arrived at the abandoned city outside the base. In the city, there were still some zombies wandering around. Immortal moved his telekinesis and controlled a bloodthirsty corpse-slaying knife to fly towards a zombie. This bloodthirsty corpse-slaying knife was the same as the bloodthirsty corpse-slaying knife in terms of material, color, and shape. The only difference was that the bloodthirsty corpse-slaying knife was a bit smaller. However, although it was called a knife, it was not that small. Every bloodthirsty corpse-slaying knife was 1 foot long. Immortal controlled the bloodthirsty corpse-slaying knife and directly pierced through a 20-centimeter concrete wall and hit a zombie. It was insta-killed on the spot. Immortal was happy. Using telekinesis to control the bloodthirsty corpse-slaying knife to kill zombies. It was much better than controlling rocks. Using rocks would not be able to penetrate the wall so easily. It must be known that the sharper the controlled object, the less telekinesis needed to penetrate the zombie's body. He could clearly feel that controlling the bloodthirsty corpse-slaying knife consumed much less telekinesis than using rocks to kill zombies. He estimated that it was only 1/10. Moreover, the bloodthirsty corpse-slaying knife could also absorb the zombie's blood and turn it into acid. This was something that rocks could not compare to. Very quickly, a system notification appeared in his mind. Killed 1 normal zombie. Gained 1 evolution point. Immortal asked, "How many points do I need to exchange for a chance to choose a reward?" The system's voice sounded. 1,000 points are required for each exchange. Damn. Immortal was speechless. If the system had leveled up earlier, wouldn't he have gained 1,000,000 evolution points from killing 1,000,000 zombies during the day? Next, he circled around the base. After circling around, he killed more than 1,000 zombies. Among these zombies, there was a mutated zombie. A notification immediately appeared in his mind. Killed 1 mutated zombie. Gained 100 evolution points. Immortal secretly nodded. A level 1 mutated zombie gave him 100 evolution points. This was not bad. At this time, his evolution points had reached 1123. He said in his mind, "System, exchange for a chance to choose a reward. Exchange successful. Host, which reward do you want to choose?" Immortal did not hesitate and said, "Brain cell enhancer." Now that he had 1,000 bloodthirsty corpse-slaying knives, if he did not strengthen his telekinesis, wouldn't it be a waste? Chapter 44. Immortal spent 1,000 evolution points in exchange for a chance to designate a reward. The system said, "Frowny face, please select your designated reward." Emosure said without hesitation, "Brain cell enhancer." The system's voice sounded, "Frowny face, you have designated the reward. After signing in, you can only receive this item." Emosure looked around. This was an abandoned shopping mall. He said, "System, sign in." "Sign in successful. Sign in reward, brain cell enhancer X1." In the next moment, a brain cell enhancer appeared in his system backpack. He was secretly delighted. The designated reward was indeed useful. He could specify the reward he wanted, and he could also ignore the location. This way, as long as he had enough evolution points in the future, wouldn't that mean he wouldn't have to run out of the base every night like this? Just lying in bed, he could sign in the reward he wanted. Not only was it comfortable, but he wasn't afraid of being seen by others and arousing suspicion. Thinking of this, Emosure was overjoyed. He spent more than 3 hours expanding the hunting range. He cleaned up the zombies within 10 kilometers of the base. In this way, he obtained more than 3,000 evolution points. His blood demons, I could see the corpse aura. Therefore, it was effortless to find zombies. Although it was night, his blood demons, I could see the corpse aura in the direction of the dam. Of course, there wasn't as much corpse aura as last time. He immediately rushed to the dam. In the end, he found that there were tens of thousands of zombies gathered here. Among them, there were more than 10 mutated zombies. He killed these zombies and mutated zombies. In just one night, he had obtained 15,000 evolution points. In other words, for the next half a month, he would be able to get the reward he wanted by signing in every day while lying in bed. The east was gradually brightening. Emosure, who had been busy all night, took out a few fried dough sticks and a bowl of steaming hot soy milk from his system backpack. On this winter morning, a bowl of soy milk with a few fried dough sticks. Was there anything more satisfying than this? If anyone else saw someone eating fried dough sticks and drinking soy milk in this zombie-infested wilderness, their eyes would have popped out. Their eyeballs would probably fall out. After eating and drinking to his heart's content, Emosure started to walk. One step covered 100 meters. He flew toward the base. While the soldiers on the city wall were changing shifts, they easily leaped over the city wall. When they returned to the corpse farm, Oldly and Happy had not woken up yet. Emosure went back to his room and fell asleep immediately. When he woke up, it was already around 3 in the afternoon. When Happy saw that Emosure had not woken up yet, he had already fed the pigs and zombies for him. There were a lot of zombies in the zombie farm. The 3 of them each had to feed at least 30 zombies and 50 pigs. When Happy saw that Emosure had woken up, he quickly jogged over. She looked at him with concern. Emosure felt a slight warmth in his heart as he smiled and said, "I'm fine. I just read too late last night." It was only then that Happy felt at ease. He used his hands to gesture. This meant that he had already brought back 2 meals for Emosure. Emosure nodded. He patted Happy's head. He messed up her neatly combed hair and said, "How sensible." Happy was not angry when Emosure messed up her hair. Instead, she smiled happily. When she first came to the corpse farm, she was only 15 years old. Emosure taught her how to feed the pigs and zombies step by step. Gradually, the 2 of them became familiar with each other. Occasionally, when they played around, Emosure would ruffle her hair until it was messed up. Now, even though she had grown into a slender and elegant woman, she still liked Emosure ruffling her hair. When Oldly saw this, he waved his hand and called Emosure over. "Young Emo, you're not young anymore, right?" Emosure looked at Oldly warily. "What do you want?" Oldly cast a glance at Happy and said, "Haven't you considered getting a girlfriend?" Emosure shrugged. "I've thought about it, but I'm just a pig farmer. Who would like me?" Oldly whispered, "I think Happy is good. Even though she doesn't know how to talk, she's pretty and considerate. Also, haven't you noticed that the girl has been interested in you since a long time ago?" Emosure really did not notice this. From the moment Happy first came, he only treated her as a little girl. Later on, even though the 2 of them had a good relationship, Emosure only treated her as a younger sister. He only treated Happy's concern for him as a younger sister's feelings for her older brother. When he thought of this, he could not help but glance at Happy, who was busy working. He could not help but think of a sentence. I treat you as a younger sister, but you want to. He turned around and said to Old Lee. How do you know? Maybe she only treats me as an older brother. Old Lee rolled his eyes at Immortal. I've been there before. Besides, my legs are bad, not my eyes. If you're willing, I'll go and find out for you. Immortal was silent. About that, Old Lee said, Don't tell me you think she can't talk. Immortal shook his head. Of course not. I'm just curious. Why did you suddenly think of this today? Old Lee sighed and said, Sigh. I'm old. I have no children in my life. All these years, I've treated you and Happy as my children. Before I close my eyes, I want to see a result between the two of you. That way, I can be at ease. Immortal smiled and said, Why are you suddenly saying this? It's like you're saying your last words. Old Lee rolled his eyes at Immortal and said, Give me a straight answer. Are you willing or not? Immortal hesitated for a moment, and suddenly remembered something. He shook his head. Let's not talk about this for now. That night after 12 o'clock. Immortal said in his mind, System, exchange for a designated reward. The system's voice sounded. Please choose your designated reward. Immortal said, Brain cell enhancer. Soon a brain cell enhancer appeared in his backpack. After the injection, he felt that his mental power had increased a little. Immortal was secretly happy. He did not need to go outside. He could get the reward he wanted in the house. This kind of feeling was very good. For the next few days, Immortal designated the brain cell enhancer every day. Finally this day, after another injection of the brain cell enhancer, his mental power leveled up. Level 7 Psychokinesis. When he reached out with his mental power, he could instantly cover a radius of 700 meters, which was 1,400 meters in diameter. Within this range, everything was clearly visible to him. He scanned with his mental power. He could easily detect Old Lee, who was snoring, and the happy smile on his face when he was sleeping. Moreover, every time psychokinesis leveled up, there would be a drastic change in his combat power. After reaching level 7, his combat power had greatly increased once again. He estimated that it would not be a problem for him to deal with a level 8 hunter or a level 8 strong mutant zombie. Of course, the concept of a strong mutant zombie was also introduced by Lu Wang. The day after he reached level 7 psychokinesis, the base announced a decision. They planned to send 3 psychokinesis, 3 hunters and 100 hunters. They would go to the ruins of base C9 to rescue more than 1,000 people. Chapter 45. Originally, after solving the crisis of the base, according to the agreement with Lu Wang, the base should immediately send people to rescue the 1,000 people. But the gate of the base needs to be repaired. And dealing with the 1 million zombies and mutant beast corpses also needs manpower. Lu Wang also expressed his understanding, saying that the 1,000 people can still hold on for a month. And these hunters who have just evolved also need time to settle down. So until today, 10 days after the zombie siege, the base announced that they will set out to rescue the 1,000 people. Of course, in these 10 days, the base chief didn't stay idle. He organized many Find the Mysterious Elite, Thank the Mysterious Elite activities. Immortal didn't care about this and still didn't show up. This made the base chief and everyone in the base very disappointed. The most disappointed person was Lu Wang. If the Mysterious Elite could show up, maybe he could ask the Mysterious Elite to rescue the 1,000 people with him. In fact, when Immortal heard the news of rescuing those people, he already decided to go. He didn't go before because it was dangerous. Secondly, it wasn't good for him. But now it's different. Killing zombies can give evolution points. There should be a lot of zombies in the C9 base. And with so many psychokinesis and hunters going, he naturally has to go and take a look. But before he leaves, he has one more thing to do. He spent 2 days to specify the signing reward. He signed 2 Virus X antibodies. Since he signed in for more than 10 years, the Virus X antibodies only appeared once. Now that he can specify the signing reward, he signed it. On the same day, Emosher gave the 2 antibodies to Happy and Oldly. He let them inject it themselves. Oldly was still a little confused and asked, "What is this? Where did you get it?" Happy didn't hesitate. After so many years, she has unconditional trust in Emosher. When Emosher told her to inject it, she immediately injected it. After the injection, she didn't feel anything special. Emosher said to Oldly, "Don't ask. Just inject it. It won't do you any harm, only good." Oldly looked at Happy and saw that Happy didn't seem to have any adverse reactions. He shook his head and said, "Fine. I'm almost 70 years old anyway. I've lived enough." Immediately, he did not ask any more questions and injected the Virus X antibody into his body. Based on his understanding of Emosher, for him to be so mysterious, it must be something good. On that day, the rescue team consisting of 3 psychokinesis, 3 hunters, and 50 level 10 hunters left the base. They were heading towards base C9. Emosher did not follow him immediately. Instead, he waited for the night 2 days after they left. He called Happy over and gave him an order in a low voice. "I have something to do outside the base. I estimate that it will take 10 days to half a month for him to return. Help me look after my work here for a while." It was rare for people to come to the corpse farm. As long as it didn't affect their work, even the leaders didn't come here often. Happy looked at Emosher, and a hint of worry appeared in his eyes. Emosher smiled and rubbed her head, messing up her hair. He said, "Don't worry. Heaven helps the worthy. There won't be any problems. I'll be back in half a month at most." Happy was a girl, and she was very careful. In addition, she was interested in Emosher and paid attention to his every move. Hence, over the years she had noticed that Emosher had some secrets. When she heard him say this, her eyes became slightly moist. She gestured with sign language. She meant, "Then we have an agreement. You must come back in half a month." Emosher nodded. "Don't worry. If anyone asks, help me smooth things over." Happy nodded. In the next moment, Emosher's figure flashed. He instantly jumped more than 100 meters and jumped over the wall. When Happy saw this, shock appeared on her face. Could Brother Emo be a hunter? No, seeing how fast Brother Emo was, he might not be a hunter anymore. He was a hunter. This thought made Happy feel incredulous. She had been in the corpse farm for so many years, and she knew that Brother Emo had many secrets. But she did not expect that Brother Emo was actually a hunter. But if he was a hunter, why did he become an inconspicuous and even looked down upon zombie keeper? Suddenly, a ridiculous thought flashed in Happy's mind. Could Brother Emo be the mysterious powerful fighter? To hide his identity, did he deliberately become a zombie keeper? After all, no matter who it was, no one would associate the mysterious powerful fighter with an inconspicuous zombie keeper. When this thought flashed in Happy's mind, he was shocked. Without moving, he could instantly kill more than 1,000 zombies. With the blood-red sandstorm, he killed more than 1 million zombies. He saved the base from danger multiple times. This mysterious powerful fighter was actually Brother Emo? How was this possible? Mysterious powerful fighter and zombie keeper. These two were practically 2 extremes. How could they be the same person? However, when this thought appeared, it grew madly like weeds. She could not suppress it anymore. Although her rationality told her that it was impossible, she could not help but think in that direction. If Brother Emo was really the mysterious powerful fighter, then what was he doing now? Was he following the rescue team to save those 1,000 people? How dangerous would that be? When she thought of this, a hint of worry appeared in her eyes. At the same time, more than 500 kilometers away, in an inconspicuous mountain village more than 50 kilometers to the southeast of the ruins of Base C9. Suddenly, there was a shocking roar. Hiss. Roar. At that moment, all the zombies hidden in the mountain village and around it raised their heads in horror and looked at the largest house in the mountain village. At that moment, in that house, a zombie slowly walked out. There were 3 claw marks on his face. These 3 claw marks extended diagonally from his left eye to the right corner of his mouth. His nose had long since disappeared. Most of the flesh on his mouth had also been peeled off by the claw marks. At a glance, one could see his exposed sharp teeth. He looked very ferocious. However, at that moment his grayish-white eyes flashed with excitement. Just now he had become a level 8 strong mutated zombie. As a level 8 strong mutated zombie, his strength had increased by 100 times. Outside the courtyard, on a withered old tree, a mutated owl without any feathers on its body and with bat-like wings. It spread its wings and landed heavily. This mutated owl actually lowered its head in a very human-like manner. It let out an unpleasant hiss. However, if one could understand the language of zombies, they would know. It was saying, "Congratulations to the leader for becoming a level 8 strong mutated zombie." The zombie with 3 claw marks let out a laughter like a broken gong from its throat. "Ga, the mutated owl said. "Leader, after being promoted to level 8, your strength has increased by 100 times. Can we go hunt that human now?" The zombie with 3 claw marks let out a roar. It said, "That human, a mere reptile. How can he compete with me? Let someone bring him over now." The blood-red eyes of the mutated owl suddenly flashed with a touch of revenge. It said, "Yes, leader." At the same time, Emosher had already run out of the base. Looking at the direction, he followed the path made by the rescue team and quickly moved forward. His speed was extremely fast. One step was 140 meters. It only took one night. At dawn, he saw the rescue team from afar. At this time, the rescue team was looking ahead, and each of them had a look of horror on their faces. Chapter 46. That morning, just after dawn, Emosher was already on top of a mountain and saw the rescue team from a distance. The rescue team seemed to be facing some problems, but Emosher didn't plan to go there for the time being. He wasn't the nanny of the rescue team. He looked around and found that 2 kilometers to the left was an abandoned city, and judging by the size, it should have been a medium-large city. There should be a lot of zombies in the city. He entered the abandoned city along the half-collapsed toll station exit that was full of dry weeds. In this city, the zombies hadn't had anything to eat for more than 10 years. One by one, their bodies shriveled up. Their skin had turned blue-black. Each one was skin and bones. Ribs were clearly visible. One could even occasionally see 1 or 2 zombies lying on the ground on the streets full of dry weeds. Some bodies seemed to be half-eaten by something. Some only had white bones left. They wandered weakly on the streets, in the shopping malls, and in the buildings. Ordinary zombies could live for a long time without eating. But if they didn't eat for a long time, their bodies would lose energy and they would still slowly starve to death. Emosher thought that if this continued, humans would persist for more than 10 years. When all the zombies starved to death, human civilization would begin to recover. But unfortunately, this idea was not realistic. Many of the zombies had become mutated zombies or strong mutated zombies. Mutated zombies were stronger, and their bodies weakened slower. It was estimated that they wouldn't starve to death in another few decades. As for strong mutated zombies, they would live for 100 years. What's more, he didn't know if there were zombies stronger than strong mutated zombies. Shaking his head, Emosher threw these thoughts out of his head. Looking at the street full of withered weeds, there was a rusty can that was out of shape. He kicked lightly with his foot. The cans began to clatter. The next moment, all the zombies on the streets, in the shopping malls, and in the buildings heard the sound. They immediately turned their heads and looked in the direction of the sound. When they saw Emosher, they were like people who had just been released from prison after 10 years and saw their wife. They all roared. Like wolves and tigers, they rushed toward Emosher. If someone were to look down from the sky, you will see Emosher as the center. All the zombies within a 1-kilometer radius gathered towards the center. Emosher smiled. With a thought, 1,000 flying daggers instantly appeared around him. Each flying dagger was about a foot long. Its entire body was pitch black. It doesn't reflect light even in the sun. The blade was made up of dozens of components. It was very technological. Then, the 1,000 bloodthirsty corpse-slaying flying daggers began to circle around Emosher at high speed. It formed a huge circle of flying knives with a diameter of 1,400 meters. 1,000 flying daggers was naturally not a lot in such an open area. However, under the control of Emosher's telekinesis, the 100 flying daggers flew at an extremely fast speed. As a result, the interior of this circle with a diameter of 1,400 meters was like a huge meat grinder. There were 3 buildings within 1,400 meters. After being twisted, they collapsed one after another. Within 1,400 meters, almost all the zombies were torn into pieces in an instant. Moreover, even these fragments were turning into blood-red mucus. Green smoke was sizzling. At the same time, the system prompt kept appearing in his mind: frowny face, evolution point +1. Evolution point +1. Evolution point +1. In just an instant, more than 400 zombies were killed in the surroundings. He obtained more than 400 evolution points. And the movement here attracted the attention of the zombies further away. They also chased over here one after another. This also saved Emosher the trouble of running over. He stood in place and controlled this huge meat grinder. He continuously killed the zombies. At the same time, 2 kilometers away, on the edge of a broken bridge covered by withered vines, the people of the rescue team were looking at a mountain on the opposite side worriedly. On that mountain, almost the entire cliff was covered with mutated bats. None of these bats had skin. Blood-red flesh was directly exposed to the outside. It was covered in blood-red mucus. And each of them was the size of a cat. Although mutated bats were only level 5 mutated beasts, they were equivalent to level 5 zombie hunters. Anyone here would be able to kill dozens of them in seconds. But the key point was that there were too many mutated bats. The entire cliff on the opposite side was densely covered with mutated bats. A rough estimate was that there were probably close to 100,000 bats. People with trypophobia would probably vomit just by looking at it. If they wanted to go to C9 base, this was the only way. Otherwise, they would have to go around more than 7 times the distance. In the wilderness, the longer the distance, the more dangerous it was. So at this time, everyone was worried. Guojutao frowned and stroked a strand of hair in front of his forehead. His voice was a bit feminine as he asked, "Lu Wang, how did you get here?" Lu Wang bitterly smiled and said, "At that time, there were no mutated bats here. That cross-eyed little bean had also become a level 10 corpse hunter." He opened his mouth and said, "Why don't we rest for an hour first? We'll think of a way while resting." Just as he said this, he suddenly heard a large number of roars from the city 2 kilometers away. Even if they were 2 kilometers away, they could imagine the situation there. Everyone's heart trembled. In order to avoid the zombies, they specifically went around that city. How could the zombies there still be alarmed? At the same time, the sissy Guojutao noticed something and whispered to everyone, "Oh no, those mutated bats seem to be alarmed." Everyone looked at the cliff on the opposite side. On the entire cliff, all the mutated bats' wings were trembling slightly. It was obvious that they were about to be awakened by the loud roar. Lu Wang hurriedly whispered, "Hide!" Everyone immediately stuck close to the ground and flashed into the bushes next to the broken bridge. After a while, they saw a mutated bat move its head. Then it flapped its wings and hovered near the cliff. It was like a mother waking her child up for dinner. Another 5 minutes later, all the mutated bats began to flap their wings and wake up. Finally, under the leadership of the mutated Bat King, they flew over everyone's heads and flew in the direction of the city. When the crowd saw this, they all revealed a look of panic. Little Bean pointed at the broken bridge on the opposite side, and then at the tunnel on the opposite side of the cliff. He asked, "Should we go now or wait?" Lu Wang said, "Wait. Maybe there are mutated beasts in the tunnel." Everyone's heart trembled again when they heard this. "Let's go to a higher place first, and try to see what's going on in the city," Guojutao suggested. Lu Wang nodded. "Me, Captain Gua, and Psychokinesis will take a look at the ridge over there. The rest of you stay here and wait for orders." Everyone immediately nodded. So Guojutao, Lu Wang, and Psychokinesis quietly sneaked in the direction of the ridge. Chapter 47. When Guojutao, Lu Wang, and psychokinesis were sneaking towards the mountain ridge. In the city, Immortal had already killed thousands of zombies. 1,000 bloodthirsty corpse beheading knives formed a huge black tornado. All the zombies that entered the range of the black tornado would be instantly torn to pieces. They would not be turned into blood-red slime. In just a few minutes, he had already obtained more than 3,000 evolution points. Immortal sighed in his heart. There were more people in the big city. However, there were fewer mutated zombies here. This made him a little depressed. Seeing that the zombies nearby were getting fewer and fewer, he began to walk forward. And as he walked forward, within a diameter of 1,400 meters, the throwing knives easily passed through all kinds of buildings. These buildings began to collapse. On the mountain ridge 2 kilometers away, Guojutao and the other two could not see the people in the city. They only saw the buildings like dominoes, collapsing one after another. Smoke and dust began to slowly rise, covering the city and the nearby hills. The three of them were all shocked. What was this thing that could cause such great destruction? Guojutao could not help but cover his mouth with his hand, and exclaimed in a very feminine voice, "Oh my God!" The other two turned their heads and looked at Guojutao. Guojutao said, "I've seen this situation before. Once, in the neighborhood by the dam, the mysterious strong person attacked and the entire neighborhood collapsed like this. Could it be the mysterious strong person is here?" Psychokinesis was reminded by him, and also nodded. "Indeed, I saw it at that time." When Lu Wang heard this, he was also happy. If it's really the mysterious strong person, then that's great. If the mysterious strong person was here, saving more than 1,000 people would not be a problem at all. At this time in the city, Immortal pushed 3 kilometers horizontally. He had already obtained more than 30,000 evolution points. It was enough for him to peacefully sign in for a month. However, he was still not satisfied. He continued to push. After a while, he came to an abandoned school. He recognized it from the stone carving outside the gate that was already covered by hay. Chang'an City Foreign Language School. Immortal's heart slightly moved. He had signed in so many places, but he had never signed in at a foreign language school. System sign in. The system replied instantly. Sign in successful. Sign in location, abandoned foreign languages college. Sign in reward, foreign language proficiency, Immortal muttered in his heart. What's the use of being proficient in foreign languages in the apocalypse? He carefully checked the skill description in his mind. Foreign language proficiency. Proficiency in any language on Earth, including zombies and mutated beasts. Yes, that's a good idea, Immortal said in a low voice. After mastering this skill, one would be able to communicate with any zombie or mutant beast. Immortal wasn't willing to mix with zombies and mutant beasts. However, if he wanted to increase his strength, hunting zombies in the wilderness would be a normal thing to do. These zombies and mutant beasts lived in the wilderness all year round. He must have obtained a lot of useful information. Therefore, it was necessary to communicate with them frequently. Just like now, Immortal used his telekinesis and brought over a zombie that looked to be about 12 or 13 years old. A trace of fear flashed in the child's eyes. Obviously, it was a mutated zombie. He had seen the human destroying the city from afar, including everything in the city. Fear had already arisen in his heart. Such a human was not someone he could contend with. Therefore, he had no intention of going over at all. However, for some reason, his body suddenly flew into the air. He quickly flew towards the human. A moment later, he arrived in front of the human. Moreover, at this moment he was still suspended in the air by an invisible force. His grayish-white eyes were filled with incomparable terror. Immortal opened his mouth and let out a roar from his throat. This was the roar that zombies used to communicate. "Tell me, where are the mutated zombies in this city hiding?" Immortal said. At this moment, the young zombie's eyes widened. He looked at the human in front of him in disbelief. This human could actually communicate with zombies. How was this possible? In his understanding, after humans transformed into zombies, they had long lost all human characteristics. Even the language system had long since ceased to exist. And after zombies mutated into mutated zombies, they would develop a unique language system. This language system relied on the pitch and length of the voice. There were also various sounds such as snoring, hissing, and other sounds mixed together to form. It was impossible for humans to understand, let alone speak. After all, to humans, this language was purely the roar of a beast. But now, the roar of the human in front of him actually connected into a complete sentence. This was simply a fantasy story. Emosher saw that the zombie did not speak, and a murderous intent flashed in his eyes. He used his telekinesis. The zombie youth was directly sent flying by the huge force. He hit the wall. The wall caved in. Then he used his telekinesis again. In the surrounding ruins. 4 steel bars as thick as fingers flew into the air. Ding 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 ding. 4 sounds. The 4 steel bars penetrated the zombie's hands and feet. They directly nailed him to the wall. At the same time, the 5th steel bar also flew up. It pointed directly at the zombie's eyebrows. It hovered less than a centimeter away from the zombie's eyebrows. Seeing this, the zombie was immediately terrified. Mutated zombies were not afraid of death. But this did not mean that they were not afraid. The human in front of him did not even move a finger. He was nailed to the wall and almost killed. Such a mysterious power was not something that a low-level mutated zombie like him could understand. He quickly made a few roars similar to pleading in his throat. I'll talk. They are in the temple under the ancient tower. Puff! As soon as the voice fell, the steel bar had already pierced the zombie's head. 5 steel bars nailed him to the wall on the 3rd floor. This young zombie, although not so ferocious, seemed to be very pitiful. But Emosher would not have any pity for him. If this young zombie was stronger than Emosher, he would be able to kill Emosher. It would also not hesitate to pounce on Emosher. This was nature. If humans pitted them instead, it was purely a brain problem. Emosher was a little excited in his heart. After searching for so long, he still could not find those mutated zombies. Now, after an in-depth communication with this young zombie, it was easy to find out the whereabouts of the mutated zombies. It seemed that he still had to subdue the zombies. And through this, he also realized a truth. How important it was to master a foreign language. Then, at a speed of 140 meters per second, he headed toward the tallest ancient tower in the city. After passing by many ancient buildings, Emosher also saw it. This was Chang'an City. Chang, and the ancient capital of the 13 dynasties. There were also many ancient buildings. Ming city walls, bell and drum towers, big wild goose tower, and so on. Now, whether modern or ancient buildings, they were all covered by weeds. It was December, and the cold wind was whistling. Emosher's gaze passed over the withered yellow weeds that were almost as tall as a person. Looking at the big wild goose tower. Looking from a distance, the big wild goose tower had been covered with withered vines and plants. It was full of vicissitudes of time. Chapter 48. It was December, and the cold wind was howling. The big wild goose tower stood in the cold wind. It was like an old man who had experienced thousands of years of vicissitudes, overlooking the overgrown Chang'an city. Emosher came to a place more than 1,000 meters below the big wild goose tower. When he arrived here, the surrounding zombies were already densely packed. They were squeezing and bumping into each other. Ayo, roar, hiss. All kinds of creepy noises came out of the zombies' throats. They bared their fangs and brandished their claws as they pounced on Emosher. Emosher was not afraid at all. Instead, the corner of his mouth revealed a smile. They were here to give him evolution points. Immediately, he used all his telekinesis to activate the 1,000 flying knives, and swept towards the thousands of zombies around him. Chi 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 chi. The black tornado roared and spun at an extremely fast speed. After the black tornado swept through, all the buildings collapsed one after another. The surrounding zombies were almost instantly torn into pieces by the thousands of high-speed flying knives. Flesh and blood splattered, and broken limbs flew. Where the black tornado swept through, only a 1,400-meter wide blood-red trace was left. At the same time, on the highest 7th floor of the big wild goose tower, a level 5 strong mutated zombie, and more than a dozen level 4 and level 3 strong mutated zombies were looking down at the black tornado that was quickly sweeping over 1,000 meters away. Looking at the 1,400-meter-wide blood-red trace left behind by the black tornado, these strong mutated zombies, their gray-white eyes were all shocked. Had humans become so strong to this extent? As strong mutated zombies, they thought that their strength was already the peak existence on Earth. They were planning to gather a large number of zombies after a while, attack the base hundreds of kilometers away. But they did not expect that a human would be one step ahead of them and attack their nest. One must know that this human was single-handedly armed. Based on the strength he had shown so far, none of the strong mutated zombies here could fight him alone. Leader, what should we do? A strong mutated zombie's eyes were filled with fear, and a trembling hiss came out from his throat. The level 5 strong mutated zombie heard this and frowned slightly. Another strong mutated zombie next to him spoke. Leader, I've heard from the zombies in other territories that this is called psychokinesis. The leader turned his head and roared from his throat. Psychokinesis? That strong variant zombie quickly explained. That's right. It's a very powerful human. I don't know what it is exactly, but from the strength this human has displayed, it should be psychokinesis. Another strong mutant zombie heard the words and roared. If he's that strong, wouldn't we be dead today? That strong variant zombie roared and said, Hey! Psychokinesis is powerful, but it has a fatal weakness. The group of strong mutant zombies heard this and looked at the strong mutant zombie. I've heard that psychokinesis is very strong, but the body is very weak. It's as weak as a normal human. So as long as we can get close to him, we can easily kill him. When the leader heard this, anger and hatred appeared in his grayish-white eyes. Then lead him to the blood pool in the north square. The group of strong mutant zombies heard this and frowned. Leader, do we really want to lead him to the blood pool? The leader let out a low roar. This human is too strong. Only the blood pool can let us get close to him. Yes. The group of zombies replied in unison. At the same time, Immortal continued to walk towards the Wild Goose Tower. Under the Wild Goose Tower was the Great Mercy Temple. At this time, more than 50 zombies rushed out from the overgrown Great Mercy Temple. These zombies were all strong variant zombies. It must be known that strong variant zombies were equivalent to hunters. Killing a strong variant zombie would give at least 1,000 evolution points. These 50 strong variant zombies were equivalent to at least 50,000 evolution points. Thinking of this, Immortal took a step forward. With one step, he covered 100 meters and rushed towards the 50 strong variant zombies. This was out of Immortal's expectations. After those strong variant zombies came out from the Great Mercy Temple, they did not rush towards Immortal. Instead, they followed the collapsed wall of the temple and headed north. Immortal was slightly startled. They were scared away? That was a bit too cowardly. However, with Immortal's understanding of zombies, this was not their style. Could it be a trap? However, if there is a trap, then there is a trap. In the face of an absolute difference in strength, all schemes were just a joke. Thinking of this, he followed the wall and chased north. When the 50 strong variant zombies ran to the overgrown square in the north, they suddenly disappeared. Even Immortal's telekinesis could not detect them. With a thought, the blood demon's pupil opened. In the next moment, he saw the square was shrouded in corpse energy. The blood-red corpse energy seemed to be solidifying. Immortal's heart trembled. Too careless. Just now when he was in the mood to kill, he did not use the blood demon's pupil to observe the surroundings. The blood demon's pupil did not consume his telekinesis and stamina. However, if he used the blood demon's pupil for a long time, Immortal would feel pain in his eyes and his mind would be slightly dazed. Therefore, under normal circumstances he would not use it continuously. He did not expect to be surrounded by corpse energy because of this carelessness. However, it did not matter. With his level 7 psychokinesis, level 5 hunter, sky splitter dragon spear, genetic martial arts and other trump cards, even if his body was reset, he could easily escape. Therefore, this thick corpse energy not only did not make him panic. On the contrary, it made him feel a little excited. There should be a very strong existence here. If he killed it, he should be able to obtain a lot of evolution points. He used the blood demon's pupil to observe the surroundings. However, he did not see any strong existences around him. Even those ordinary zombies did not dare to take a step forward when they came to the edge of the square. Since there was not a single zombie, but there was such a thick corpse energy, this could only mean one thing. Emosher looked at the ground under his feet. At this moment, rumble, the ground collapsed. Emosher's reaction was extremely fast. On the surface of his body, fingernail-sized crocodile scales instantly appeared and covered his entire body. At the same time, he used his telekinesis to support himself on the ground and levitated. However, the telekinesis flying speed was too slow. On the ground under him, there was already a huge pit with a diameter of more than 50 meters. Under the sunlight, it could be seen clearly. In this huge pit, there was a huge blood pool with a diameter of more than 50 meters. This blood pool was filled with a dense blood energy. Under the sunlight, it was suffused with a scarlet blood mist. Ordinary people would probably be scared out of their wits just by looking at it from the side. At this moment, Emosher was floating in the middle of this blood pool. Chapter 49. Emosher floated above the huge blood pool with a diameter of 50 meters. He suddenly felt that something was wrong. He hurriedly used his telekinesis to support his body and flew to the side. At this time, blood bubbles began to appear in the blood pool. Soon, the entire blood pool was boiling. The blood waves rolled and splashed everywhere. In the rolling blood waves, broken limbs and bodies were mixed from time to time. There were even skulls that were constantly washed out of the pool by the rolling blood waves. Emosher cursed in his heart. What the hell was this place? At this moment, from the churning pool of blood, a bloody arm stretched out. This arm, as thin as a dry branch, quickly stretched out. Soon, it reached more than 20 meters long. It directly grabbed Emosher's arm. Emosher's telekinesis moved. A bloodthirsty corpse beheading knife swept past in an instant. Gee! There was a soft sound. The bloody arm had been cut off. With a plop, it fell into the blood pool. But almost at the same time, there were hundreds of bloody arms next to him. They grabbed Emosher tightly. After they grabbed Emosher, hundreds of needle-like arms grew on each arm and drilled straight into Emosher's body. However, the surface of Emosher's body was a layer of hard scales. These needle-like arms couldn't drill in at all. Those arms seemed to be angry. They directly turned into thousands of finger-thick arms. They tied Emosher up like a dumpling. Then with a plop they pulled him into the blood pool. Emosher only felt a strong smell of blood, going straight into his nose. Entering the blood pool, there were more arms around him. Suddenly, finger-thick arms grew out of all the arms, wrapping Emosher up in 3 layers inside and 3 layers outside. At the same time, on the cave walls around the blood pool, the strong mutated zombies that had escaped before jumped out one after another. They roared excitedly in their throats. We caught him. This psychokinesis is really powerful. But his body is very fragile. Destroy him. As long as it's trapped, its body will be no different from that of a normal human being. These zombies roared excitedly while rushing towards Emosher. Plop, plop. They also jumped into the blood pool. A strong mutant zombie's sharp blade directly attacked Emosher. However, when its sharp claws scratched Emosher's body, Emosher was stunned. Crack, 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 an ear-piercing sound was heard. Its sharp claws only left a string of sparks on Emosher's scales. That strong mutant zombie was stunned. At the same time, other strong mutant zombies also encountered the same situation. It didn't matter if they used their claws or their teeth to bite. None of them could penetrate Emosher's skin. How is this possible? Isn't it said that psychokinesis's physical body is very fragile? Who said that just now? Come forward. At this moment, a soft roar sounded in their ears. Psychokinesis is all brittle? Who told you that? In the next moment, a claw shadow instantly appeared. Chi 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 chi. All the strong mutant zombies' bodies were instantly split into two halves. With just one claw, all more than 50 strong mutant zombies were instantly killed without exception. Before they died, all the strong mutant zombies had the same last thought. Who the hell said that psychokinesis's physical body was very fragile? Moreover, this was not the end. Emosher's claw not only cut all the strong mutant zombies in half. Moreover, the invisible force released by this claw actually split the entire blood pool into two. In the blood pool, the hundreds and thousands of arms were also cut off one by one. Then this chi force extended forward for another 300 meters. On the walls of the blood pool, 5 huge cracks were cut open by the sharp invisible force. These 5 huge cracks were 5 claw marks. Each claw mark extended for more than 300 meters. It extended all the way to the bottom of 2 buildings in the distance. The 2 buildings suddenly collapsed with a loud bang. The blood in the blood pool suddenly flowed quickly from the 5 claw marks. On the 7th floor of the big wild goose tower. When the zombie leader saw this scene, his eyes flashed with fear. This human was actually so strong? With a casual wave of his hand, 5 huge cracks more than 300 meters long appeared on the ground. With such terrifying strength, he was probably already a level 7, or even a level 8 hunter. That was an existence that he could not compete with at all. Also, didn't they say that psychokinesis's physical body was very fragile? But did this guy look fragile at all? It was because he listened to this nonsense that the blood pool was destroyed in the end. One had to know that the blood pool was the foundation of their strong mutant zombies. Thinking of this, the level 5 strong mutant zombie suddenly turned his head and looked at the subordinate next to him. That subordinate was the zombie who said that psychokinesis's physical body was very fragile. Seeing the leader looking directly at him, his body suddenly trembled. Leader, I don't know, I also heard it from the zombies in other territories. Bang! Before he finished speaking, his chest was hit. He flew more than 100 meters out of the tower. Only then did he fall. He smashed through a building and smashed into a wall. The leader turned his head and looked at the blood pool that had been divided into 2 in the north square. Fortunately, this blood pool has the ability to recover. It will recover soon. However, a moment later, he realized that he was wrong. The blood pool had no intention of recovering at all. The pool of blood quickly flowed along the 5 claw marks. The broken limbs and body parts in the blood pool also sank to the bottom of the pool, motionless. When the leader saw this, his body suddenly trembled. His grayish-white pupils were filled with fear. The blood pool is dead. The other strong mutant zombies next to him heard the leader's words. Their bodies trembled. The blood pool was dead? How was this possible? After mutant zombies reached level 10, they had reached the limit of mutation. They could not advance any further. And the reason why they could surpass the limit and become strong mutant zombies, it was because they absorbed the blood water in the blood pool. In their eyes, the blood water was like holy water. It could provide them with an endless supply of energy. Since the blood pool was discovered more than 10 years ago, the blood pool had always been alive. And the blood pool's recovery ability was extremely strong. No matter what kind of damage it suffered, it could basically repair itself in a very short period of time. But now the blood pool was dead. This made all the strong mutant zombies feel an inexplicable panic in their hearts. Without the blood pool, how could they continue to become stronger in the future? Without the blood pool, how could they get energy? Without the blood pool, how could they create more strong mutant zombies? But the fact proved that they thought too much. Because at this time, thousands of black flying knives had appeared around the big wild goose tower. Then chi 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 chi. These 1,000 flying knives instantly attacked all the strong mutant zombies on the tower. The flying knives came from all directions. These strong mutant zombies had no way to escape. Almost instantly, they were torn to pieces by these 1,000 flying knives. And the wall of the 7th floor of the big wild goose tower collapsed after being pierced by these 1,000 flying knives. They were all torn to pieces, and would never have to worry about the blood pool again. However, when Emosher's flying knife pierced the zombie leader's head, the zombie leader let out a roar. Roar. Emosher understood the meaning of the roar. Lowly human, the king will not let you go. Chapter 50. Only 6 floors remained of the 7 floors of the big wild goose tower. Whether it was hunters or strong mutated zombies. In front of the level 7 psychokinesis embark, they were just ants that he could casually destroy. Generally speaking, a level 1 psychokinesis could kill hunters that were 2 or 3 levels higher. Because psychokinesis could control throwing knives to attack, hunters could not get close at all. Although the level of psychokinesis was very difficult to increase. But with every increase in level, the strength would increase tremendously. So as long as he reached level 5 psychokinesis, he could kill a level 1 hunter. Now, embark was already level 7 psychokinesis. Under the control of throwing knives, even level 7 hunters and level 7 strong mutated zombies could be killed with a flip of his hand. At the same time, in the pool of blood that had already dried up. In embark's mind, notifications continuously sounded. Frowny face killed level 3 strong mutated zombie, evolution points plus 3000. Killed level 2 strong mutated zombie, evolution points plus 2000. Killed level 4 strong mutated zombie, evolution points plus 4000. The 50 strong mutated zombies gave him 120,000 evolution points. The last level 5 strong mutated zombie gave him 5,000 evolution points. So far, his total evolution points had exceeded 150,000. With so many evolution points, it was enough for him to stay at home for 5 months and get a designated reward. Embark already had the idea of returning to the base and staying there for 5 months. At that time, 5 months should be enough to raise his telekinesis to level 8. Level 8 psychokinesis should be able to kill any hunters and strong mutated zombies. But thinking about it again, it was rare for him to come out. There were more mutated zombies at the C9 base. As the saying goes, saving a life is better than building a 7-floor pagoda. Why not go there and save the 1,000 people at the same time? Killing 2 birds with 1 stone. But embark had some doubts in his heart. Before the zombie leader died, it said, "King will not let you go." That king must be an even stronger existence. How strong would it be? Level 6 strong mutated zombie? Or even the stronger level 7, level 8, or level 10? Or even stronger than level 10 mutated zombies? The more embark thought about it, the more dangerous the wilderness was. After returning this time, he'd better stay in the base obediently and sign in properly to level up. With that thought in mind, he casually scanned his surroundings. With the help of the blood demon's eyes, he found that the corpse chi here had faded a little, but it did not disappear. Something was wrong. Generally speaking, as long as the zombie was killed, the corpse chi would disappear. Even if there was a blood pool here, the blood in the pool had already dried up. The corpse chi should have disappeared a long time ago. However, the corpse chi in the air didn't dissipate much. Thinking of this, embark's eyes searched carefully. Finally, at the bottom of the blood pool, broken limbs and broken bodies were flipped over. He found something strange. On the ground of the blood pool, arms as thick as fingers extended in all directions. If one took a closer look, the shape of these finger-thick arms gave off the feeling that they were the blood vessels of a human body. He used the bloodthirsty zombie slayer to gently pry open an arm as thick as a finger. In that arm, other than a small bone and a small amount of muscle, the rest was a large amount of blood. And when he cut off this arm, he could clearly feel that the other arms had shrunk a little. He cut off several more arms in a row. All the small arms around him had obviously shrunk a lot. At a certain moment, these small arms that looked like blood vessels suddenly moved like hundreds and thousands of small snakes. They quickly crawled back to the ground. Embark used the bloodthirsty zombie slayer to dig 1/2 meter into the ground. He didn't see the shadows of those small arms at all. He released the Titan dragon claw again. With a slight force, he drew a huge gully about 5 meters deep in the ground. However, he still didn't find those small arms. It was as if they had never existed. Embark frowned. Something was strange. He thought of the zombie leader's words before he died. He secretly guessed that this blood pool and the small arms that looked like blood vessels might be related to the king that the zombie spoke of. In short, he had to leave this place as soon as possible. Thinking of this, he tapped his feet lightly and jumped to the ground. However, just as he jumped to the ground, He felt that the sky suddenly darkened. It was only noon, and it was a sunny day. Emosher couldn't help but look up. With this look, a faint smile couldn't help but appear on his face. He saw that the sky above his head was dark. They were all mutated bats. Every mutated bat had a pair of small, blood-red eyes. There was no skin on their bodies, and their muscles were exposed. They were covered in blood-red mucus. And each bat had a wingspan of 2 meters. Tens of thousands of mutated bats attacked Emosher. The mutated bat king in the lead had a wingspan of 3 meters. It opened its huge mouth, revealing 4 sharp fangs. It roared, hiss. All the mutated bats heard this order and spread their wings. They bared their fangs and roared. 100,000 roars gathered at the same time. 100,000 mutated bats also gathered together. Like a blood-red torrent, they rushed towards Emosher. At the same time, on a hill 2 kilometers away, Lu Wang, Guojutao, and Psychokinesis were also watching all of this. Because a large number of buildings in Chang and city had collapsed. Smoke and dust filled the air. They could only see a blurry figure. At this time, the figure was facing a huge swarm of bats. Guojutao couldn't help but feel a little nervous. Although he knew that this person was likely to be a mysterious expert, the number of bats was too large. And the mysterious expert had been fighting with psychokinesis for so long. The consumption of psychokinesis should also be very large. So now, could he still deal with this huge swarm of bats? In the next moment, Emosher gave them the answer. The tens of thousands of mutated bats attacked Emosher. However, just when they were more than 500 meters away from Emosher, bang, almost instantly all the bats, including the mutated bat king, their heads all exploded into a cloud of blood mist. His body exploded and scattered in all directions. From afar, the dark cloud that was attacking Emosher instantly turned into a cloud of blood. Then, this cloud of blood gradually drifted with the wind. Seeing this scene, the 3 of them were all stunned on the spot. They were stunned for a full half a minute. Only then did they realize what had happened. The 3 of them all made a gurgling sound from their throats. Guojutao's eyes were full of horror. In his mind he recalled more than 10 years ago. That night more than 10 years ago. The mysterious expert, motionless. Those zombies' heads exploded one after another. And now this scene appeared again. But today, the heads of these mutated bats exploded more quickly than those of the zombies more than 10 years ago. The heads of those zombies exploded one after another like dumplings being dropped into a pot. And these mutated bats' heads exploded at the same time. It was as if a huge firework had been set off. The fireworks directly covered the sky near the big wild goose tower. The sky was also dyed blood red. Even stronger. The mysterious expert psychokinesis seemed to be stronger than 10 days ago when the zombies besieged the city. And psychokinesis next to him was 10 times or 100 times more shocked than Guojutao. You're tuning into the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.